Chapter 729. The King of Darkness's eyes blurred, and he almost lost himself in it. However, he managed to control himself at the last moment and said in surprise, "Is this a Buddhist treasure?" Humph! In the past, this demon was invincible. However, since then, the Central Prefecture's king has done a lot of research on this demon. He has found a way to restrain it, which is the Buddhist power. Using the Buddhist power to suppress the demon, I just need to delay it for a few minutes and wait for it to dissipate by itself. As he spoke, the Blood Emperor knocked on the wooden fish. A majestic sound of Sanskrit reverberated in the world, and a 10,000 zhang tall golden Buddha shadow descended from the sky. Under the illumination of the Buddhist light, the hideous demon looked terrified. It could only release demonic energy from its body to resist the Buddhist light, and it couldn't chase after the Blood Emperor anymore. This scene made the King of Darkness's heart sink. The floating life door was his trump card to deal with the Blood Emperor. However, the fact was that the Blood Emperor had found a way to deal with it. If the Jojo Emperor had this method in the past, he wouldn't have ended up like this. It's over. The King of Darkness smiled bitterly. After hundreds of years, I still can't protect the Divine Lord? He could only watch the Blood Emperor knock on the wooden fish and suppress the demon. Time passed slowly. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. The demon couldn't break free from the suppression of the Buddhist light. After the time it took to drink half a cup of tea, the demon let out an indignant roar, turned into a black light beam, and disappeared. At this moment, the Blood Emperor also stopped. His face was slightly pale, as if he had overexerted himself. Cracks appeared on the wooden fish in his hand. In the battle just now, the already broken wooden fish was on the verge of shattering. The Blood Emperor took a deep breath, and his face was extremely gloomy. Good. I have underestimated you. If I hadn't prepared well, you would have succeeded. The Blood Emperor's eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at the King of Darkness coldly. The King of Darkness's eyes were filled with despair, and he smiled bitterly. I have failed the Divine Lord for so many years. I couldn't fulfill his wish, and I couldn't take revenge for him. My death is not to be regretted. In the past, the Jojo Emperor had fallen, but there were still people who were so loyal to him. Their integrity was admirable. Die. The Blood Emperor took a step forward. It was as if the entire world was moving, and he arrived in front of the King of Darkness in the blink of an eye. He pointed a finger at the King of Darkness's forehead. At this point, the King of Darkness, whose world was broken and whose spiritual energy was scarce, couldn't even resist. I hate it! The King of Darkness roared at the moment of his death. I hate the fact that I have the heart to kill the enemy, but I don't have the strength to do so. He glared at the Blood Emperor and said, "Blood Emperor, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost." The Blood Emperor laughed coldly. "Then go and become a ghost." After saying those words, Zhang Xian pointed his finger forward. The King of Darkness closed his eyes in despair, his heart full of bitterness. The people in the Dragon Abyss and the living beings on the continent were all silent. They had thought that the arrival of the King of Darkness would save them. Who would have thought that the King of Darkness would be defeated? No one could save them. What awaited them was death. However, just as he pressed down, a whistling sound assaulted him. The Blood Emperor cast a sideways glance, and his pupils contracted. He suddenly withdrew his hand, and his expression became extremely gloomy. "You dare to attack me?" A round ball that was half blue and half yellow spun in the air and returned to Su Yu's palm. "If I didn't attack you, would I have waited for you to kill me?" Su Yu asked calmly. His eyes were still like stagnant water, without any ripples. The Blood Emperor snorted coldly. "Then I'll let you die first." Chila, he pointed a finger at Su Yu. Su Yu didn't have any fairy artifacts, so he couldn't block such an attack. His body and soul would be destroyed the moment he came into contact with it. However, Shock appeared on the Blood Emperor's face when he saw that Su Yu didn't try to dodge it. Instead, he just opened his mouth and started reading some cryptic word. The words were filled with deep killing intent and a strong demonic nature. This was also an incantation. At the same time, Su Yu's soul shook, and a palm print, which had been entrenched in his soul for a long time, floated out. Floating life door? The Blood Emperor was shocked. How is this possible? You also have a floating life door? This door came from an ancient ruin in the Twilight Mountains. The King of Darkness was also shocked. What? This is Wu Xian Daoist's floating life door. In the past, after the Jiuzhou Emperor created the continent, he was on the verge of death, so he handed over the remaining 4 floating life doors to the 4 great guards. They were the King of Darkness, the First World Senior, the Abyss of Wudong's Master, and the Twilight Mountains Wu Xian Daoist. In the end, besides the King of Darkness and the First World Senior's floating life door, the other 2 people had died, and their floating life doors had disappeared. The King of Darkness had gone to the Twilight Mountains to look for it, but he had only found some ruins. How could such an object appear in Su Yu's hand? Moreover, it was in his soul. Su Yu had hidden it too deeply. What shocked them even more was that Su Yu was reading another cryptic word, which was completely different from what the King of Darkness had read. Did you also comprehend these words? The Blood Emperor sucked in a breath of cold air. He was overwhelmed with shock. Both the Central Prefecture's king and the King of Darkness had spent a great deal of effort to comprehend them, and they had spent dozens of years just to succeed. Su Yu nodded calmly. These words are just the demon clan's words. After Su Yu learned how to use the floating life door, he examined the palm seal in his mind and discovered a small word that he had overlooked before. He had assumed that it was some kind of pattern, but after he observed it carefully, he discovered that it was the demon clan's words. These words were also among the words that Yun Yazi had given him. Although there weren't many of them, it wasn't difficult for him to comprehend a small part of them. After he finished reading the incantation, the palm seal emitted a bright light and flew toward the sky. It created a pitch-black gap in the sky, and it seemed like the sky had been torn open. Hee. A creepy, demonic laughter transmitted from the pitch-black gap. A demon. Another demon. Su Yu looked at the Blood Emperor calmly. Since you are well prepared to deal with demons, why don't you try fighting another one? I want to see whether your wooden fish or that demon can endure it. The Blood Emperor was both angry and hateful. He wanted to kill Su Yu, but he didn't dare to waste any time. He hurriedly took out his wooden fish and summoned the giant golden Buddha. Boom! It was at this moment that the demon descended upon the world. The giant demon, whose whole body was emitting a terrifying demonic energy, grinned evilly as it confronted the giant Buddha. The Blood Emperor incessantly instilled his all-creation power into the wooden fish, while he nervously looked at the demon. As his all-creation power gradually became exhausted, beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, just like before, the giant Buddha and the demon were confronting each other. However, as the wooden fish started shattering, the Buddha statue's Buddhist light became dimmer, and it was unexpectedly being suppressed by the demon. The Blood Emperor was greatly startled, and his face became gloomy. Finally, the time it would take to brew half a cup of tea had passed. However, it was at this moment that a loud bang echoed, as the wooden fish was shattered. The Buddha statue disappeared. It seemed like the otherworldly demon was infuriated by the Blood Emperor's previous actions, and it grinned evilly as it tried to grab the Blood Emperor. The Blood Emperor's scalp went numb. In the past, even the Jiuzhou Emperor had been heavily injured by a single punch from the otherworldly demon. The Blood Emperor turned around and tried to escape. However, the otherworldly demon's palm was too fast, and when it seemed like it couldn't catch the Blood Emperor, it snorted angrily and slapped the Blood Emperor's body. Bang! The Blood Emperor was slapped into the ground, and the whole continent was shaken by the impact. The Blood Emperor's body was torn apart, as it was unexpectedly destroyed by the demon's palm strike. After the otherworldly demon killed the Blood Emperor, it turned its gaze towards Su Yu and the King of Darkness. It licked its scarlet tongue and pounced at them while grinning evilly. However, when the time it would take to brew half a cup of tea had passed, it roared angrily, while its body turned into a beam of light and charged into the void. The world became quiet once again, and only the boiling magma remained. The Blood Emperor, an all-creation old monster, had been killed just like that. Many people felt like they were dreaming, and they couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Even the King of Darkness felt like he was dreaming, and he couldn't come back to his senses for a long while. It was only after a long while that they finally accepted this reality. The Blood Emperor had been killed, and the people of the Zhenlong continent had been spared. The King of Darkness's eyes flickered as he said, "Let's go and have a look. We must first ascertain whether the Blood Emperor is really dead or not. That old thief is really cunning, and we mustn't fall for his trick." Su Yu nodded, then went to the place where the Blood Emperor was killed. The ground was littered with minced meat, and even his soul had disappeared. It was obvious that his body and soul had been completely destroyed. It was only at this moment that the two of them heaved a sigh of relief. "Lord Shun, the Blood Emperor has been killed." The King of Darkness knelt down in the direction of the northern continent. His eyes were filled with tears. Now that a huge rock had been lifted from his heart, he could finally relax. "Su Yu, what are your plans for the future?" The King of Darkness looked at Su Yu. Su Yu looked at the shattered sky and earth, then shook his head blankly. "I don't know." His heart was already dead, and no matter how vast the world was, it wouldn't be interesting to him. "Why don't you follow me and cultivate in seclusion with Lord Shun?" The King of Darkness's eyes were filled with admiration. "You are such a talented person, and you shouldn't be buried in the dust." However, just as he finished speaking, a strange sound reverberated in their ears. They could see that the minced meat on the ground was wriggling on its own, then condensing together to form the Blood Emperor's body. At the same time, a mocking sneer transmitted from the body. "Hee, that old bastard, Shinichen, is really still alive." The sudden sneer caused the King of Darkness's whole body to shiver. He looked at the body in disbelief, and his pupils contracted to the size of needles. "Did you manage to cultivate it successfully?" The undying silver body was a nature-defying body refining technique that could be used again, as long as the body wasn't damaged. Only the Jiuzhou Emperor had managed to cultivate this technique successfully. In the central prefecture, there was no one else who could comprehend it. The Blood Emperor had unexpectedly managed to cultivate it successfully. In the twinkling of an eye, the Blood Emperor's body had completely recovered. He then opened his eyes, which emitted two bright rays of light. At the same time, he threw a punch at the two of them. At such a close distance, it was a sneak attack, so it was impossible for them to dodge it. "Be careful." The King of Darkness's expression changed drastically. He raised the god-slaughtering spear and shielded Su Yu behind it. However, how could they block an all-creation realm expert's attack at such a close distance? Bang! The two of them were sent flying away by the force of the collision. As the King of Darkness flew away, his face turned pale and despair filled his heart. When he saw Su Yu out of the corner of his eye, he clenched his teeth and patted Su Yu's shoulder. He then imbued Su Yu with a wisp of his vital energy, which he had just recovered, and shouted loudly, "Run away quickly! Hide and hide your aura to avoid the continent's calamity." As he spoke, the god-slaughtering spear in his hand shrank until it was the size of a palm. He then stuffed it into Su Yu's bosom. The god-slaughtering spear has a space within it that can hide one's aura. If you hide inside it, he won't be able to discover you. The King of Darkness spoke anxiously as he coughed up a mouthful of blood. "You are the only one left in the Zhenlong continent. If you are still alive, remember to take revenge for us." The King of Darkness laughed bitterly as he pushed Su Yu away. Su Yu, who was still flying away, sped up and crossed countless spaces like a fireball. Humph! You are about to die, yet you still dare to cause trouble. The Blood Emperor raised his hand and clawed at the King of Darkness. Blood splashed out of the King of Darkness's body as his whole body was torn apart. However, the King of Darkness still had some use in interrogating him, so he didn't kill him. He allowed the King of Darkness to fall onto the ground as he looked at Su Yu, who was still flying away. Just as he was about to move, a sweet-sounding voice transmitted from behind him. "Senior, let me take her life with my own hands." When he turned his head around, he saw that it was Xia Jingyu. The Blood Emperor furrowed his brows and muttered to himself irresolutely for a moment before nodding. "Fine. Hong Luan's remnant soul has already informed me about your matter. Come with me to the Central Prefecture, and I will recommend you to the Central Prefecture's king. I will leave this Su Yu to you, so that you can take credit for him in front of the Central Prefecture's king." He then added, "However, you aren't a match for him, so you should come with me and take his head back." The Blood Emperor waved his sleeves as he led the way. Xia Jingyu revealed a smile and saluted him. "Many thanks, Senior." As she spoke, she followed the Blood Emperor and flew away. After the time it took to brew half a cup of tea, the Blood Emperor landed in a desolate forest. A giant fireball crater could be seen clearly. This fireball crater was deep in the ground, and it seemed like it had crashed into some underground ruins. In the underground ruins of the Twilight Mountains, a playful smile appeared at the corners of Xia Jingyu's mouth. "This place? You saved me here in the past, so now I will kill you here." After she spoke, she followed the Blood Emperor and jumped into the cave. The underground ruins weren't big, and Su Yu, who had fallen into it, was leaning against a giant rock. There was boiling lava all around him. When Su Yu detected Xia Jingyu and the Blood Emperor's arrival, he opened his eyes, which were as calm as still water. "Did you come to take my life?" Xia Jingyu replied calmly, "Yes, that's right." Su Yu didn't resist her, as it was already too late for him to escape into the god's slaughtering spear's space. The Blood Emperor clasped his hands behind his back, while his sorry face was filled with ice-cold killing intent. "You are just a trifling half-fairy junior, yet you managed to force me to use my undying silver body technique. You should be proud of yourself. Now I will send you on your way." The more he interacted with Su Yu, the more afraid he became of Su Yu. As such, he attacked mercilessly and pointed his finger at Su Yu's chest. His finger contained a terrifying sword energy, and it wasn't something that Su Yu could block. Su Yu's gaze was calm, and it was as calm as still water. He took a deep look at Xia Jingyu before he closed his eyes and muttered softly, "Goodbye, my lover." His finger was filled with shocking killing intent, and it streaked across the air as it pierced Su Yu's chest. However, the pain that Su Yu had expected didn't occur. Instead, a warm liquid splashed on his face. When he opened his eyes subconsciously, he was greeted by a scene that caused his pupils to contract. A beautiful figure was standing in front of him. It was a familiar figure, and it was a familiar aura that he would never forget. There was a scarlet bloodstain on her back, which gradually became bigger, and in the blink of an eye, half of her back had been soaked. Her legs trembled, and the beautiful figure fell into Su Yu's embrace. Her mouth was filled with blood, and her face was filled with an apologetic expression. "Rain?" Su Yu was confused. Xia Jingyu obviously hated him to the core, and she wanted to kill him as soon as possible. So, why did she step forward at the last moment and die for him? Why? What kind of trick is she trying to play? "Brother Su Yu, stand up." Xia Jingyu's chest had been pierced through, and her life force was quickly draining away. She raised her hand with great difficulty and held Su Yu's palm. They both possessed the same divine decree, and as they held each other's hands, they could communicate their thoughts to each other. "I'm sorry for deceiving you, Brother Su Yu." Xia Jingyu's thoughts were also quickly weakening, and her once cold eyes were now filled with emotion. She then said, "Actually, Siener's body was properly preserved in the Duke of Xianyu's manor, where you two met. I didn't destroy her." Su Yu's mind rumbled. "No, Xia Jingyu didn't do such a thing. I didn't betray you, brother Su Yu." Xia Jingyu's eyes gradually dimmed, and her thoughts became weaker. She was only a few breaths away from death. Su Yu's pupils contracted, and his heart became flustered. His eyes, which were like dead water, became tense again. Xia Jingyu was about to die, and he had thought that he hated her. But now that she was about to die, he realized how flustered he was. "Where is your fate-altering pill? Where is it? Quickly take it out." Su Yu and Xia Jingyu both had a fate-altering pill. However, Xia Jingyu smiled gently and sadly. "Brother Su Yu, I'm really happy that you still care about me. But there is no need for that. I have already fed the pill to Siener." "Fed it to Siener?" Su Yu's mind shook, and he suddenly recalled the scene in the Duke of Xianyu's manor, where pear blossoms were in full bloom. It was clearly late autumn, so where did the pear blossoms come from? Such a scene, such vitality. Only the vitality emitted by the fate-altering pill could achieve such a thing. The fate-altering pill was being digested by Siener, and that was why it emitted such vitality and blossomed with pear blossoms. "You gave it to Siener, but what about yourself?" Su Yu's eyes became blurry, and he instantly understood Xia Jingyu's intentions. Xia Jingyu smiled sweetly. "I don't need it. I gave it to Siener as a congratulatory gift for your wedding. My gift came late, so I'm sorry." "Why did you do that?" Su Yu asked. Xia Jingyu slowly closed her eyes, and her eyes lost their luster. "I saw the end of the world, the Zhenlong's fate, and everyone's death. Fate can't be changed, but 2 fate-altering pills can bring the dead back to life and change fate. Whoever has them will be able to survive this tribulation." She then added, "That's why I left mine for Siener. Brother Su Yu, you two can grow old together." She then added, "Because I wanted to avoid Hong Luan's remnant soul surveillance, I treated you coldly on purpose. Please forgive me. Every time I treat you coldly, I feel sad. Brother Su Yu, you must hate me to death." Xia Jingyu closed her eyes, and her remaining consciousness continued to communicate with Su Yu intermittently. Hot tears rolled down Su Yu's cheeks and his palms trembled. Xia Jingyu was still the same Xia Jingyu. She was willing to sacrifice herself to help him and Siener. She had never changed. "I don't hate you, and I have never hated you, because I still love you." Su Yu's voice trembled. "Oh? Is that so? Good." Xia Jingyu curled up the corners of her mouth and revealed a serene smile. She then fell into Su Yu's embrace. "You must be blessed." Xia Jingyu conveyed the last thought in her life. Her small hand, which was holding Su Yu's hand, slowly slid down. She had used her whole life to help Siener. She obviously wanted to stay with Su Yu forever. "Jingyu." Su Yu hugged her body, which was gradually turning cold, and took out the exquisite pagoda. The fate-altering pill within it was filled with vitality, and it could save a person who had just died. Chapter 730. The fate-reversing pill could bring the dead back to life and reverse yin and yang. It was the only heaven-defying pill that could change the fate of death. Xia Jingyu had left the pill with Siener to help her and Su Yu. She had loved Su Yu so much, and Siener had entrusted Su Yu to her before her death. But she had still chosen to sacrifice herself. Just like in the past, she had sacrificed herself many times to help Su Yu and Siener. She was still as kind as before. Su Yu's heart was filled with grief and shock. He had misunderstood Xia Jingyu. He knew that Xia Jingyu wasn't a heartless and traitorous person, yet he had still misunderstood her. Her heart must be in great pain, especially when Su Yu had said that he would kill her with his own hands. In the end, she would die just as she had predicted, and she would die at Su Yu's hands. When she died, she was lying quietly in Su Yu's hands. Su Yu crushed the exquisite tower, and the fate-reversing pill flew out, emitting a 9-colored divine radiance. As it shone upon her, Xia Jingyu's wounds started healing at a speed that could be observed by the naked eye. The blood that had flowed out of her body returned to her body, and the gaping hole started healing quickly. It was a miraculous and heaven-defying miracle. In just a breath's time, her body had recovered to its original state. However, her eyes were still closed, and they didn't fluctuate at all. Her soul eyes didn't detect even the slightest bit of her soul's aura. There was only deathly stillness within her body. Her body had been revived by her life force, but her soul had already disappeared. It had turned into sparkling energy and dissipated in the world. Just relying on the life force emanating from her body wasn't enough to save her life, so she had to swallow the pill. What do you mean by changing fate? What do you mean by resurrecting the dead? If you don't exist in this world, then what does it matter if my fate is changed? In the end, I'll just be a walking corpse. Su Yu looked at Xia Jingyu's sleeping face, while a loving smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. He then put the pill into Xia Jingyu's mouth. If she consumed it, then her fate might be changed. As long as she and Sienna survived, then even if he couldn't avoid death, so what? However, at this moment, a cold snort resounded in Su Yu's ears. Xia Jingyu is really something. I had planned to recommend her to the Central Prefecture's king as his concubine, but in the end, she just fooled me and Hong Luan. The Blood Emperor's expression turned gloomy. Xia Jingyu's disguise was too good, and he and Hong Luan couldn't guard against her at all. He didn't even know that Qin Xian'er had secretly swallowed another reversal pill. But how stupid is that? Did he really think that a single pill could change his fate of death? She blocked the killing blow for you. How could she block the second blow? Blood Emperor said. As he spoke, his gaze locked onto the fate-altering elixir in Su Yu's palm. Greed welled up in his heart as he said, "Wouldn't it be a waste to give such a divine elixir to someone who will surely die? Why don't you give it to me?" He made a grabbing motion in the air, and infused the power of all creations into his body as he tried to snatch the reversal pill away. However, Su Yu was prepared for this. Before he attacked, thunder and lightning surged around his body, and he teleported with his thunder body. Don't even think about it. This pill was the only hope of saving Xia Jingyu. How could it be taken away? If that was the case, Xia Jingyu would really disappear from this world. Qila. His body was like a lightning shadow as he teleported across space. As long as he could fight for even a single breath's time, he would be able to feed the pill to Xia Jingyu. After the pill entered her body, even if the Blood Emperor possessed great abilities, he still wouldn't be able to digest its medicinal power and turn it into a complete pill. However, Su Yu wasn't facing a fairy or a divine master, but a supreme all-creation old monster. A cold smile appeared at the corners of the Blood Emperor's mouth. Using spatial power in front of an all-creation old monster? How ignorant and laughable. The Blood Emperor didn't seem to make any move, but he just waved his sleeves casually, causing the world within 100 miles to crumble into spatial fragments. A large area of the pitch-black void appeared ferociously. Wisps of terrifying spatial turbulence howled in the pitch-black abyss. Su Yu, who was in the middle of teleportation, suddenly fell out of the void because of the spatial power's disturbance. Moreover, he ended up returning to his original spot. Splutter! As Su Yu's technique was forcefully interrupted, the blood vessels in his body shook violently, and he spouted a mouthful of blood. The golden internal energy channel in his body started fluctuating and contracting intensely. Well, your teleportation failed, yet you weren't torn apart by the spatial power. It seems like your body is somewhat special, the Blood Emperor said calmly as he looked at the golden internal energy channel on Su Yu's body. After Su Yu's teleportation failed, he waved his sleeves without any hesitation and left a trail of afterimages behind him. It was the Underworld Pearl. If the Blood Emperor was afraid of Su Yu, then the only thing he was afraid of was this object. His expression became grave, and he immediately turned around to evade it. Suyu then took advantage of this opportunity to soar into the sky and escape through the underground passage. What Suyu wanted to do wasn't to escape, but to fight for a single breath's time so that Xia Jingyu could consume the pill. After all, he wasn't in a state of battle, so he couldn't help Xia Jingyu swallow the pill. However, it seemed like Suyu had even abandoned the underworld pearl. He was willing to give up anything for Xia Jingyu. Delight appeared in the Blood Emperor's eyes. If he could use this object for himself, it would surely be a powerful magical treasure. However, the Blood Emperor didn't immediately grab it. This was because the pearl was extremely heavy, and he didn't dare to touch it rashly unless he was fully prepared. After all, he still remembered how he had lost his arms and legs to it during their last fight. Moreover, what he was most concerned about at this moment was the fate-altering pill, which was a heaven-defying divine pill. If he got it, it would be tantamount to gaining an extra life. If he wasted time on the underworld pearl and gave Suyu some time to catch his breath, he would end up feeding the pill to Xia Jingyu. For him, who had cultivated to the level of an old monster, he could make a clear decision in a split second. The Blood Emperor chased after Suyu without hesitation. Or rather, he didn't chase after him, but teleported. Suyu managed to rush out of the underground passage with great difficulty and reach the outside world. However, the moment he rushed out, a blood-red shadow appeared in front of him. "Lad, where do you think you are going?" The Blood Emperor thrust his palm at him. It was a deadly strike that shattered the void. Suyu's pupils contracted, but he didn't panic. Instead, it seemed like he had already prepared for this. His right eye shone with a wine-red light as he shouted, "Spatial vortex!" A spatial vortex appeared in front of him, and it was unknown where it led to. During the Battle of the 100 Territories Alliance, he had used the spatial whirlpool to help Zi Donglai escape. Suyu's space abilities were space transportation and space vortex. The former teleported a short distance, but could accurately teleport to a location. The latter teleported a long distance, but it was difficult to pinpoint the exact location. Now that the space within 100 kilometers was shattered, short-distance teleportation was impossible. Only long-distance teleportation could be completed. Once the space vortex appeared, Suyu entered it without hesitation. The Blood Emperor's palm strike missed, and his expression changed slightly. Not good. However, there was no panic on his face. Instead, he became even colder. "You're courting death." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished into thin air. In the space vortex, Suyu seemed to have experienced countless teleportations. When he arrived at the teleportation point, he discovered that he was actually in the boundless 9 heavens. Looking down, there was an incomparably huge blue planet below, extremely similar to Earth in the past. Above the planet was a continent shaped like a palm. "It's the Zhenlong world," Suyu exclaimed as he recognized it with a single glance. He had already seen such a scene when he was teleporting back to the Zhenlong continent from the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion. The so-called Zhenlong world was actually a planet. Suyu was no stranger to this concept. In fact, he even had some guesses about what kind of world the Jojo world was. "I was unexpectedly teleported to the starry sky?" Suyu was slightly surprised. It seemed like the space vortex had undergone a qualitative change after being sealed for such a long time. In the past, Zi Donglai had only teleported him out of the northern continent, but now, he had teleported him directly to the starry sky. Since time was pressing, Suyu didn't have any time to ponder this matter, so he immediately stuffed the fate-altering pill into Xia Jingyu's mouth. However, right at that moment, space energy suddenly appeared around Suyu. It was so sudden and so precise that it was completely unexpected. The incomparably powerful space energy shook Suyu away. Xia Jingyu's body, which he was hugging tightly, was forcefully separated by the spatial power. A giant palm, which was within the spatial storm, grabbed Xia Jingyu, who had been pushed away. At the same time, a blood-red figure stepped out of the spatial storm. He. The Blood Emperor appeared and held Xia Jingyu's neck. A cruel and cold smile appeared on his face as he said, "I have already said that competing with an all-creation old monster's spatial power is foolish and laughable." Su Yu stabilized his body within the spatial storm with great difficulty. As he looked at Xia Jingyu, who was being held by the Blood Emperor, his pupils contracted and his heart thumped wildly. "Let her go, and I can give you anything you want besides the fate-altering pill," Su Yu said in a deep voice as he stared fixedly at Xia Jingyu's body. If her body was destroyed, he would never be able to see Xia Jingyu again. Xia Jingyu was the love of his life. Even Qin Xian'er's death had caused Su Yu's heart to sink. So, if Xia Jingyu was killed, how would he feel? The Blood Emperor revealed a ferocious smile. "I only want the fate-altering pill. As for your other possessions, I will come for them one by one, including your life." In front of absolute power, Su Yu didn't even have the right to bargain with him. "Lad, say goodbye to her." The Blood Emperor smiled cruelly as flames started burning between his fingers. In an instant, Xia Jingyu's body was engulfed by raging flames. "No!" Su Yu's eyes widened in anger, and he felt like his heart was being torn apart by someone. Su Yu didn't care about the spatial powers tearing him apart as he pounced at her. The Blood Emperor sneered coldly and loosened his grip. Xia Jingyu, who had turned into flames, fell toward the planet beneath her like a bright meteorite. The great friction caused Xia Jingyu's flames to become even more intense. Her beautiful figure was slowly being melted by the raging flames. Su Yu felt like he had just suffered a destructive blow, and his eyes became bloodshot and absent-minded. As he roared crazily, Su Yu pounced at the falling Xia Jingyu. The Blood Emperor sneered coldly and pointed at Su Yu from afar. A wisp of spatial power erupted in front of Su Yu. Su Yu sank into a boundless madness and lost all reason. He plunged into the spatial explosion. Bang! His right arm exploded into pieces, his left arm was shattered, his chest was torn, and even his head had a crack. His entire body fell into a state of disintegration. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to bear such inhuman pain, and they might even faint. However, Su Yu's blood-red eyes were focused on Xia Jingyu, and he didn't feel any pain at all. The fate-altering pill in his palm emitted a 9-colored divine light, and boundless life force surged into Su Yu's body. His body, which had been torn apart, started healing quickly. It was now comparable to the Blood Emperor's undying silver body. The Blood Emperor snorted coldly as he pointed at Xia Jingyu. A series of spatial power explosions occurred in front of Su Yu. Su Yu acted as if nothing had happened to him, and he only had Xia Jingyu in his eyes. His body was destroyed by the spatial explosions, and it was reborn again and again. The bursting blood dyed the starry sky red, dyeing the silent darkness a captivating red. Su Yu, who didn't care about anything, continued chasing after Xia Jingyu. 1,000 feet. 5,000 feet. 1,000 feet. There was only a distance of 10,000 feet between them, but it seemed like it was as long as the two ends of the Milky Way. Su Yu felt like he had been chasing after her for countless years, and he had only managed to catch up to her. Finally, he was nearing her. 10 feet. Su Yu flew over and hugged Xia Jingyu. The raging flames spread to Su Yu's body, engulfing his mangled and torn body. Their two bodies fused together and turned into a giant fireball, which fell on the Zhenlong continent. Bang! It was as if a star had been destroyed, and the intense collision gave rise to a boundless cloud of dust, which engulfed the whole continent. A giant fire pit, which was comparable to the northern continents, appeared on the continent. Magma erupted from the pit, and its blood-red temperature burned everything. At the bottom of the deep pit, on top of a giant rock floating in the magma, Su Yu hugged a burning figure. He did not let go no matter what. Jingyu. Su Yu's voice was hoarse, and his eyes were bloodshot. The vital energy in his body surged like a flood, extinguishing the flames on Xia Jingyu's body. With the fate-altering pill, as long as Xia Jingyu's body wasn't destroyed, he would be able to save her. It's fortunate that it's not too late. Su Yu's absent-minded heart calmed down slightly, and he took advantage of this opportunity to stuff the fate-altering pill into Xia Jingyu's mouth. As the pill entered her body, Xia Jingyu's burning injuries started healing quickly, and she would come back to life in a matter of days. Stop, you beast! The Blood Emperor teleported over, but it was already too late. His hair fluttered in anger, and as he roared, he strode forward and tried to grab Xia Jingyu. Even if you have to cut open her stomach, you must still take back the pill. A pill like the fate-altering pill was a precious treasure to the Blood Emperor. However, just as he moved, an unexpected scene occurred. Xia Jingyu's body suddenly started melting. Her whole body started becoming transparent, and it started disappearing from the inside out. Then, it turned into a sparkling light that disappeared from the world. It was obvious that she had consumed the fate-altering pill, yet her body wasn't coming back to life. Ah! Jingyu! Su Yu roared angrily, while he tried to instill his vital energy into her body to prevent her from dying. However, nothing happened. Xia Jingyu's body was still melting quickly. Thump! The fate-altering pill, which hadn't been digested yet, rolled out of her body and stopped in front of Su Yu's knees. Blood Emperor! What did you do to her? Su Yu's blood-red eyes were like lightning, and he seemed like a crazy beast. When he looked at the Blood Emperor, even his heart couldn't help but skip a beat. He couldn't help but wonder, are these still the eyes of a human? However, when he came back to his senses, he was overjoyed and he sneered, "What does this have to do with me? Her body is melting because the poison in her body has flared up. It seems like she swallowed a deadly poison in advance in order to prevent you from giving her the fate-altering pill after her death." "What a foolish woman," the Blood Emperor said disdainfully. Su Yu's heart was shaken, and he couldn't come back to his senses for a long while. Chapter 731. Suddenly, Su Yu recalled Xia Jingyu drinking wine under the moonlight at the Duke of Xianyu's palace. Could it be that he had swallowed poison at that time? She already knew that Su Yu would use the fate-altering pill for her. Therefore, he took the pill in advance to make his physical body disappear. "Even in death, you are still thinking about me?" Su Yu's eyes were hollow, and his heart was filled with boundless grief and sorrow. "But I don't want to." Su Yu's eyes shone with a fierce divine light. "I don't want you to die." Suddenly, a dazzling Milky Way appeared on his right palm, and it was filled with boundless dazzling starlight. The Blood Emperor was startled, and he asked in surprise, "What is this?" Even with his all-creation's eyesight, he couldn't recognize the origin of the object in front of him. Without hesitation, Su Yu placed his right palm, which contained starlight, on Xia Jingyu's abdomen. As the starlight seeped into Xia Jingyu's body, it circulated through her body once before returning to Su Yu's palm. When the starlight dispersed, a layer of purple-black powder appeared on Su Yu's palm. It was the purified poison. Xia Jingyu's transparent body immediately returned to its solid state. In the end, her body was saved. "Little brat, I will also accept this treasure on your behalf." The Blood Emperor's pupils shrank. Although he couldn't recognize the origin of this treasure, it didn't mean that he couldn't discern it. It had the ability to purify the toxins in the body. He realized that the Milky Way starlight was extraordinary. Su Yu turned a deaf ear to her, while he quickly grabbed the fate-altering pill and stuffed it into Xia Jingyu's mouth. "Evil creature! With me here, do you think you still have a chance?" The Blood Emperor smiled cruelly and looked at Xia Jingyu. "Do you think that the flames that I placed on her body can be extinguished so easily? What does that mean?" Su Yu's heart thumped, and his expression changed abruptly. Puff, a strange sound entered his ears. It was the sound of something being destroyed in flames. Suyu felt a sudden heat in his chest, and then his whole body became light. His eyes flashed with fear as he looked down in disbelief. In his arms, Xia Jingyu's body was burned into a pile of ashes. Her ashes floated in the air and fell into the boiling magma. Then, she sank into the eternal silence of the earth. She was dead, completely and utterly destroyed. From then on, there would no longer be a fairy-like, picturesque woman who would risk her life for him time and time again. That peerless figure had completely disappeared from his life. Pain, a heart-wrenching pain, filled his heart. Dead, she's dead. He would never see that woman again. Dong, a soft sound came from Suyu's bosom, and a thick, pitch-black book floated out of his bosom, floating in front of Suyu. The Starry Sky Heavenly Book was a low-grade divine artifact. The divine artifact, which could store a large number of memories, had once belonged to Xia Jingyu. When they were in danger in the dragon abyss of the 9 underworlds, she had asked Xiener to hand it over to Suyu. There was a will in this book, and forcefully opening it would only destroy it. Only when Xia Jingyu herself disappeared would the book open. Now, Xia Jingyu's body and soul had been destroyed. She had been erased from this world. The book opened by itself. Suyu's eyes became blurry as he stared at the Starry Sky Heavenly Book in a daze. The Heavenly Book opened on its own. An expanse of fluorescent light shot out from the book, interweaving into a picture scroll in the void. This was the scene of the memory projection. In the picture was Xia Jingyu's beautiful figure. The absent-minded Suyu's eyes suddenly focused. He held the Heavenly Book excitedly, looking at the familiar figure without blinking. In the picture, every detail of Xia Jingyu's life was recorded. Every place she had walked, every object she had seen, was recorded in detail. Picturesque mountains and rivers, bustling people, all kinds of martial arts, all kinds of strange people, from the ocean to the Empire of Darkness branch, from the branch to the headquarters Lord Exam, from carrying out many tasks to reading all kinds of martial arts. Everything she had seen was recorded in the Starry Sky Heavenly Book, without missing a single detail. It was as if she was reading the world for someone else. Suyu's soul shook. A promise he had almost forgotten appeared in his mind. When they had parted at Xinyue Island, Xia Jingyu had promised to see all the prosperity of the Zhenlong continent for Suyu. She would use her eyes to replace Suyu's eyes. She had not forgotten her promise. She had used the Starry Sky Heavenly Book to record all the prosperity she had seen. The picture continued until the dragon abyss of the 9 underworlds. Xia Jingyu was holding the Heavenly Book, sitting alone on a flight of stairs. She was staring blankly into the distance. The corners of Xia Jingyu's mouth curled up into a smile as she looked at the current Suyu through the images. She then looked at Suyu's eyes, which were filled with tenderness. "Brother Suyu, when you see this, I will already be gone. I don't know how long I accompanied you before I left. I don't know whether I was happy when I left. It's a pity that I can't see the future. I just hope that I left in your arms." As she spoke, Xia Jingyu's face blushed. She looked delicate and beautiful, like a red lotus in the wind. Xia Jingyu bit her lips, mustered up her courage, and shyly looked into Suyu's eyes. "Brother Suyu, I don't know whether I told you my feelings before I left. Actually, I like you. I have always liked you. My words must have scared Brother Suyu, right?" Xia Jingyu's face was filled with regret. "Am I being too selfish? I knew that you had me, but I still troubled you." After thinking for a moment, Xia Jingyu shook her head and forced a smile. "I'm not here anymore. Brother Suyu, you don't have to worry about it." Her smile was full of loneliness. "Okay, Brother Suyu, goodbye. These are probably my last words to you. If you find out that I have died, don't be sad, as my world has become more splendid and exciting because of you. I'm very satisfied, and I don't have any regrets." Xia Jingyu stood up, her eyes filled with a smile, and her black hair fluttered in the wind. "Finally, I wish you and Xiener a long life together. Please forgive me for not being able to attend your wedding. Goodbye, my beloved brother Suyu. As the last wisp of her voice faded away, the starry sky heavenly book's light dimmed. It closed by itself and fell on Suyu's palm. Suyu subconsciously tried to grab the blurry figure in the picture. However, what he caught was just an illusory figure. Suyu's eyes became blurry, and his tears fell on the starry sky heavenly book. As he stroked the starry sky heavenly book, Suyu felt an unprecedented sense of loneliness. Lowly life forms like to use meaningless emotions to warm each other up. They don't know that it's just a waste of time, the Blood Emperor said coldly. He raised his palm and tried to grab the fate-altering pill. However, when the pill just flew into the air, it was grabbed by a palm. Suyu treated the starry sky heavenly book like a precious treasure, so he carefully put it into the 9-jade spiritual pearl. He lowered his head and looked at the rain ashes on his palm. He didn't even raise his head as he grabbed the fate-altering pill. His white hair hung down and covered his face, so it was impossible to see his expression. However, boundless ice-cold hatred and killing intent erupted like an ancient flood. "I want you to die," Suyu said in an apathetic tone. A half-fairy wanting the life of an all-creation old monster was just a joke. However, the Blood Emperor's heart became restless for a moment, and he felt a stifling feeling. After cultivating for so long, his divine sense had already fused with the world, and he could faintly detect ominous signs. That stifling feeling was a bad omen. He couldn't stay in the Zhenlong continent for long. He couldn't get rid of it. "I will kill you first," the Blood Emperor said as he looked at Suyu. The Blood Emperor's gaze became grave as he looked at Suyu. His gaze contained an all-creation's power, which was enough to instantly kill Suyu. However, Suyu did something that infuriated the Blood Emperor. He raised his head, opened his mouth, and swallowed the fate-altering pill. This pill contained a terrifying life force, and if a living person swallowed it, it would be like the most poisonous poison in the world. If Suyu swallowed it, he would just be courting death. "Lad, you." The Blood Emperor was both startled and angered. He felt like Suyu had already gone crazy. When the Blood Emperor saw the pill's medicinal power immediately take effect in Suyu's body, he was filled with hatred. However, his fear of Suyu also became more intense. The most terrifying thing in the world wasn't a peerless enemy, but a lunatic. This was especially the case for a lunatic who didn't even care about his own life. Now that the pill was gone, the restless feeling in his heart became even more intense. He must quickly leave. However, his mission to kill Shinichen had been delayed for so long. "I don't have any time left. Fine, I'll just destroy the world once again and destroy Zhenlong and Shinichen." After the Blood Emperor spoke, he teleported into the starry sky and looked down at the blue planet. As he took a deep breath, a dragon's roar echoed out of his body, while a boundless all-creation power surged out of his body. His left palm shone with a dazzling moonlight, while his right palm shone with sunlight. He grasped the sun and the moon, grasped yin and yang, and wore a crown of stars, sun and moon on his head. His majestic figure seemed like a heavenly god. His palms shone brightly, illuminating the silent, dark space. In an instant, the sun and moon shone brightly in the starry sky. "Heaven-extinguishing divine palm!" the Blood Emperor shouted, his voice shaking the starry sky. A long time ago, the Zhenlong continent had been destroyed, and even now, it still had the outline of a giant palm. The palm that destroyed the Zhenlong continent was the heaven-extinguishing divine palm's last move, the radiant divine palm. This palm had appeared once again. In the past, the Jiuzhou Emperor had created the continent once again, but now no one could save it. "Extinguish!" the Blood Emperor shouted as he thrust his palm forward. As the sun and moon shone together, a palm print crossed the starry sky and descended upon the blue planet. Along the way, all the meteorites turned into powder, leaving no traces behind. As for the Zhenlong continent, every corner was engulfed by a dazzling radiance, as if it was the end of the world. Amidst the radiance, a palm print that covered the heavens and the earth suddenly descended. From the sea to the eastern continent, from the southern continent to the northern continent, the entire world was covered by the palm print. Bang! The palm print descended. Its destructive power engulfed billions of mountains and rivers. Everywhere it passed, the space shattered. All living creatures and matter were drawn into the boundless void and turned into dust. The northern continent, the southern continent, the western continent, the eastern continent, and the central continent were all shattered like a painting. Even the sea was drawn into nothingness. The Zhenlong world had disappeared in an instant. Wu Yen, the king of darkness, the people in the dragon abyss, and everyone else had been annihilated the moment the world was destroyed. Looking at the starry sky, the blue planet had turned into nothingness. It had been erased from the starry sky. The entire world sank into an eternal deathly silence. All of the experts on the continent had been annihilated. The Blood Emperor retracted his palm and glanced at it coldly. He muttered, "Lowly beings should be destroyed." However, just as his voice echoed out, his pupils contracted. Everything in the deathly silent ruins had been annihilated, and everything had become deathly still. However, there were still two tenacious life forces left in the deathly silence. If one looked at it from afar, they would see two intact corpses floating in the deathly silent starry sky. One of them was a petite woman who was sleeping peacefully. Her whole body was brimming with life force, and the injuries caused by the previous destruction were instantly healed by a heaven-defying medicinal power. The other corpse was a white-haired youth, who was standing calmly in the center of the ruins. He had white hair and blood-red eyes, and his killing intent was so strong that it startled the stars. His body was also brimming with a terrifying life force. Even though the world's destructive power had destroyed everything, it couldn't shake him in the slightest. The fate-altering elixir was just like what Xia Jingyu had predicted, and it could turn the world's destruction around. However, what Su Yu wanted wasn't just his own rebirth. As he lowered his head and looked at the ashes in his palm, Su Yu laughed heartily in the deathly silence of the world's destruction. His laughter shook the starry sky and millions of galaxies. His laughter was filled with desolation, determination, and madness. "Jingyu, you sacrificed your life for me, so why shouldn't I reverse reincarnation for you? I, Su Yu, have never believed in fate, and I have always gone against it. This time, I will do the same. Even if it's the reincarnation of fate, I will still go against it." His crazed laughter reverberated throughout the entire galaxy. The Blood Emperor's eyes flickered, and the restlessness in his heart became more intense. He's crazy. He's really crazy. He had cultivated for such a long time, yet he had never heard of anyone who dared to go against the reincarnation of fate. The reincarnation of life and death was a supreme heavenly law, and it was a taboo law. Who would dare to go against it? Yin and yang, life and death are not decided by the heavens, nor by fate. Only I, Su Yu, can decide. Su Yu pointed his finger at the sky and shouted crazily. His left eye shone with a purple light, while his right eye shone with a wine-red light. His time power and space power burst forth at the same time. Life and death reincarnation, space-time reversal. As Su Yu shouted, the entire starry sky was engulfed by his space-time power. Space-time reversal. He wanted everything to return to its original state. How is this possible? Time and space have always flowed without end since the ancient times. How could they possibly reverse it? The Blood Emperor couldn't believe it. However, in the next moment, he stiffened, his eyes filled with fright. He saw that the destroyed starry sky, which was engulfed by the purple light, had returned to its original state. The silent destruction wasteland, where the Zhenlong continent was located, had returned to the moment before its destruction. It was the scene of a star suddenly exploding and destroying the world. However, the scene was now being reversed. The explosion had shrunk, and the star had returned to its original state. The dead Jinlong experts, Wu Yan, the King of Darkness, and Jiu Yuanzhou, were all in the same state as before their destruction. As for the divine light palm, which had caused the destruction, it was now rapidly retreating. The blue star, the world-destroying divine light palm, and the instantaneous world-destroying explosion were all rewinding. No, it wasn't rewinding, but rather space-time was reversing. He had returned to the time before the world was destroyed. As he stood there, he couldn't move at all. He could only watch helplessly as the divine light palm, which he had used, returned to his palm, and the blue star had returned to its original state before its destruction. However, this wasn't the end. Space-time was still reversing. He wanted to go back to the moment before Xia Jingyu's death. Chapter 732. Time and space were flowing backward, and the scene kept rewinding. From the moment Xia Jingyu was burned to ashes by the raging flames, to the moment she turned into a fireball and fell from the sky, to the moment she was captured by the Blood Emperor and brought back to the underground ruins, to the moment she quietly died in Su Yu's arms. You must be blessed. Xia Jingyu, who was on her deathbed, used her will to convey the last bit of blessing in her life. Her grip on Su Yu's hand slid down quietly. At this moment, Xia Jingyu's soul was erased from the world. At this moment, time was flowing backward. Is that so? I'm so happy. She fell into Su Yu's embrace and closed her eyes. Every time you treat me coldly, I feel so sad. Brother Su Yu, you must hate me to death. I saw the end of the world, the fate of the true dragon. Everyone will die. Their fates will not be changed. However, these two reversal pills can bring the dead back to life and change their fates. Whoever possesses them will be able to survive this calamity. Therefore, I will leave mine for Xiener. Brother Su Yu, you can grow old together with Xiener. Xia Jingyu had revealed the truth, and before she died, she gave Su Yu and Xiener her deepest blessing. The scene kept rewinding until the Blood Emperor's finger came crashing down. Her beautiful figure was like a butterfly's shadow blocking in front of him. It was this time that he stepped forward bravely and caused Xia Jingyu's death. The flow of time and space stopped at this point. Everything returned to the moment before Xia Jingyu's death. The whole body of the Blood Emperor, who was about to kill Su Yu, shivered intensely, and he finally managed to free himself from the space-time reversal. Horror appeared on his face as he exclaimed, "How is this possible?" Xia Jingyu, who had stepped forward bravely to block the deadly attack for Su Yu, was at a loss. What's going on? Why do I feel like I've experienced a part of the future? I feel like I'm already dead. Xia Jingyu's brows were tightly knitted together. She was shocked. How is this possible? My premonition has deviated? Originally, she had seen the end of the world, a world of silence and destruction. But now, the future that her trajectory divine decree sensed was not destruction, but a blurry state. The future could not be changed. Everything had to follow a trajectory. Birth, old age, sickness and death, prosperity and decline, everything had to follow a trajectory. But the scene before her deeply shook her heart. The trajectory had become indistinct, which meant that the future was full of uncertainty. It might be the same future, or it might be a different future. Who was it? Who changed the future? Xia Jingyu was extremely shocked. Suddenly, a strand of spatial energy surged behind him, and it enveloped him as well before instantly teleporting him 50 kilometers away. Her shoulder was tightly held by a large hand. It was strong, steady, and filled with a familiar aura. She didn't need to turn her head to know that it was Su Yu. Did you do it, brother Su Yu? Xia Jingyu looked back at him, her eyes shimmering with tears. The familiar face in front of him was still there. His once elegant silver hair was now completely white. Why? I'm already dead. I've already said goodbye to you. Why did the future change? Xia Jingyu couldn't understand. She stared at the face in front of her. Su Yu extended his palm and gently touched the face in front of him. His palm trembled slightly, as he was afraid that this was just an illusion. The smooth jade-like feeling was transmitted to his palm. It was real, and time and space had successfully reversed. Xia Jingyu was back. Su Yu's heart trembled, and his inner world, which was on the verge of collapse, was restored once again. Welcome back. Su Yu's voice was choked with emotion as he extended his arms and embraced Xia Jingyu tightly. It was as if he was afraid of losing her once again. Xia Jingyu was caught off guard, and she was almost suffocated by his embrace. However, she didn't feel any pain, and she only felt tears of joy. She felt as if she and Su Yu had been separated for countless centuries. Brother Su Yu. The sadness and joy in her heart turned into tears, which flowed out of her eyes. Her delicate body lay in Su Yu's embrace as she wept loudly. Su Yu felt at ease. Everything could be salvaged. A ball of silver light appeared in his palm, and he calmly extracted the deadly poison from Xia Jingyu's body. The whole world was silent, as if it was silently praying for this pair of lovers, who had been separated by life and death. In the Dragon Abyss, in the Zhenlong continent, countless living beings were bewildered. They all had a part of their memories of a destructive palm seal descending upon them, destroying the world and burying them. But now, why did everything return to its original state? Jiu Yuanzhou's eyes were filled with confusion. The King of Darkness was also confused. In the sunken northern continent, at the bottom of a boundless sea, in the Inu area, which had sunk deep into the sea, an old man was calmly standing among the ruins. It was Fan Haixing. His body was illusory, and it seemed like it would soon disappear. Time and space are flowing in reverse. The ancient god Jiulong's power, which controls time and space. Fan Haixing's eyes shone brightly, while his old face was filled with gratification. My Zhenlong world has unexpectedly given birth to an ancient god Jiulong's successor. It was really the right decision to hand over the world-shaking dragon Bao to you. His illusory body gradually dissipated, while he looked at Su Yu, who was millions of miles away, and let out a desolate sigh. I'll leave everything to you, Jiulong's successor. I'm tired, but I can finally rest in peace. As a soft sound echoed, his body dissipated completely, turning into a ball of light that floated in the sea. The body of the King of Darkness, who was millions of miles away, shivered intensely as he looked in the direction of the northern continent. He knelt down on the ground and kowtowed. Farewell, Lord Shen. Have a safe journey. 2 streams of warm tears flowed down his cheeks and fell to the ground. They turned into sparkling crystals as he shouted. At the same time, all of the Zhenlong world's people felt as if they had lost something. Su Yu also sensed this, and he felt an indescribable sadness in his heart. It was as if he had lost a blood relative. At the same time, a sorrowful cry echoed in the sky, as if someone was mourning. Many snowflakes fell to every corner of the Zhenlong continent. It seemed like the heavens were weeping. Who had passed away? Why was the world mourning? Only the Blood Emperor wasn't startled. Instead, he was delighted. Ha ha ha, just as I expected, Shen Yichen only has a remnant soul left. In the past, he used his own blood essence to recreate the continent's living beings, but the price he paid was his life. He only left behind a remnant soul, which managed to hold on until now. It was only then that I destroyed it, causing it to disappear completely. Shen Yichen, who was once the Jiuzhou Emperor, was too powerful. He had surpassed a certain boundary, and Su Yu's space-time reversal couldn't affect him. Even though he managed to reverse time and space, he couldn't bring back his soul. He had perished in the endless space-time river. He had once created the Zhenlong continent, and he had sacrificed his life to obtain the Zhenlong continent's reproduction. It could be said that all of the Zhenlong continent's living beings were his bloodline descendants. This was why all of the Zhenlong continent's living beings were grieved by his death. She left Su Yu's embrace and bowed toward the northern continent, then said, Thank you for allowing the Zhenlong continent to continue. As she looked at Su Yu out of the corner of her eye, she saw that he was still standing motionlessly. Brother Su Yu, aren't you going to pay your respects to him? Xia Jingyu asked. Su Yu closed his eyes and shook his head slightly. Someone must let go of their grief and take revenge for him. When he opened his eyes, a shocking killing intent engulfed the Milky Way. His gaze penetrated through space-time and looked at the Blood Emperor. You have exterminated the Zhenlong continent twice. I, Su Yu, swear in the name of the Zhenlong continent's billions of living beings that I will kill you. A grave look appeared on the Blood Emperor's face when he heard this. Lad, I must admit that I have really underestimated you. But, even so what? The Blood Emperor spoke calmly. After reversing time and space, you will just be destroyed once again. I don't believe that you didn't pay a price for reversing time and space. How earth-shattering was it to forcefully reverse time and space? It was like reversing yin and yang, reversing the cycle of reincarnation. Such a heaven-defying matter couldn't possibly come without a price. As if to answer the Blood Emperor's words, a cracking sound echoed from the back of Su Yu's hand, and a fragment fell off. It was a fragment of skin that had been petrified. After the fragment fell off, the back of his hand was filled with wrinkles, and his vital energy channel had deteriorated. It seemed like the hand of an old man. Brother Su Yu, what happened to your hand? Xia Jingyu covered her mouth in surprise. When she heard that Su Yu had reversed time and space, her doubts disappeared, but she still couldn't help but panic. The Blood Emperor revealed a cold smile. Just as I expected. The price for doing so is your life. He then added, time is eternal and unchanging. It doesn't increase or decrease, and it flows unceasingly in the world. The reversal of time and space in this place must be made up for by some other time, and its source is obviously the person who used it. You used your own time to change the state of time in the region around you, which is why you managed to reverse time and space. After the Blood Emperor recovered from his shock, he explained the principle behind the reversal of time and space. Su Yu was using his own lifespan to reverse time and space. This was the reason why his hand had aged. Yes, what you said is correct, Su Yu said calmly, while his gaze became sharp and cold. But, so what? It's enough for me to kill you. The Blood Emperor shook his head calmly. I already said that even if I reverse time and space, so what? I will just destroy it once again. You won't be able to bear the price of reversing time and space too many times, so the outcome won't change. Yes, he could reverse time and space, but so what? If he couldn't erase the Blood Emperor from this world, he would destroy it once again. Even if Su Yu reversed time and space, the outcome would still be the same. In the end, Su Yu's life force would be extinguished, and he wouldn't be able to reverse time and space again. However, the Blood Emperor was too powerful, and he was like a god that couldn't be shaken or erased. Who said that I can reverse time and space? If I kill you, everything will come to an end. Su Yu looked at him coldly. The Blood Emperor furrowed his brows. Kill me? In front of absolute power, all schemes are useless. Fine, I wasted too much time. This time, I will destroy the world once again and kill you along with everyone else, the Blood Emperor said calmly. It was as if he was announcing the Zhenlong world's destruction once again. His afterimage flickered as he appeared in the starry sky once again. He then took a deep breath and used the divine light palm. The starry sky was once again engulfed by the radiance of the sun and moon, while the Zhenlong continent was once again illuminated by a world-destroying light. All of the living beings' blurry memories suddenly became clear. Yes, they had just experienced a world-destroying event a moment ago. Were they going to be destroyed? Heaven extinguishing divine palm, destroy. The Blood Emperor's voice was as cold as the heavens as he thrust his palm down from the starry sky. Amidst the dazzling radiance that filled the sky, a giant palm that covered the entire true dragon world came crashing down. The world-destroying palm descended upon them once again. All of the living beings who had just experienced a world-destroying event were filled with fear. In the end, they couldn't escape their fate and they would all die. Chapter 733. Wu Yan's face was filled with bitterness. In the Blood Emperor's eyes, she was just an insignificant ant. Even though he knew that she existed, he still didn't want to save her. He just wanted to erase her from the world. Jiu Yuanzhou sighed softly and closed his eyes, waiting for the world's destruction to befall him once again. All of the living beings were in despair. In front of the godlike Blood Emperor, they could only look on helplessly as they were annihilated. Xia Jingyu chuckled bitterly, and as she looked at the approaching palm print, she unconsciously held Su Yu's old hand. She then looked at him affectionately and said, "Brother Su Yu, your ending isn't too bad. At least, I was able to hold your hand before I die." "That's great." Xia Jingyu revealed a bright smile as she leaned her head on Su Yu's shoulder. Her face was filled with happiness. This could be considered the best ending for her. Su Yu held Xia Jingyu's hand and asked softly, "Are you satisfied with this? You still haven't gone to see the world outside of the Zhenlong continent for me." Xia Jingyu was startled and looked at Su Yu in shock. Does he have the power to resist an all-creation? Su Yu revealed a faint smile as he slowly closed his eyes. His soul then entered his soul space. When he appeared there, he found himself surrounded by boundless darkness. Su Yu clasped his hands behind his back and said calmly, "Come out." The space was deathly silent, and there wasn't any response. "Do you need me to invite you out?" Su Yu's ice-cold gaze shot toward a certain direction. This was the soul space he had created, so how could anyone hide in it? Ah, what a rare guest. "Did you miss me? Did you want to talk to me about life and the universe?" A scarlet drop of blood yawned as it teleported out of the darkness. Su Yu swept it with an indifferent gaze. "Well, I have recovered some of my primordial energy." Su Yu's eyes narrowed as he swept the surroundings. "Does this mean that Venerable Fu Gui's soul was eaten by you?" "What? Eaten by me? I am the heretic god who dominated the ancient times. That's right. I'm an evil god. Back in the day, I devoured the sun, the moon, and the galaxy. I slaughtered the heavens and slaughtered the earth. I was even sent to the heaven-destroying divine emperor. I really killed gods and Buddhas. I ate ancient true spirits every day, slept with ancient spiritual beauties, and played with billions of stars. How could I steal a mere divine master's soul? Hey, what are you doing? Don't be like this. I'm the heaven-destroying divine emperor, the divine emperor." Before he could finish his words, Su Yu stomped his foot on the ground. "Heaven-destroying divine emperor? I don't think so." Su Yu calmly looked down at the drop of blood. The drop of blood panted heavily. "Don't bully me just because I'm poor. When I reconstruct my fleshly body, I'll definitely destroy the entire universe." "Ouch, stop stepping on me. I'm just a bag of old bones. Can you take it easy?" Su Yu said coldly, "Cut the crap. I came here to make a deal with you." When it let go of its foot, the drop of blood spun around and started muttering complaints. When it was glared at by Su Yu, it immediately shrank back and said, "Lad, what kind of deal do you want to make? This god loves to guide the younger generation." Su Yu replied concisely, "I want to borrow your power. Not lending." The drop of blood raised its head proudly and refused decisively. "This divine emperor is extremely powerful, and a single strand of my hair can destroy the sun, moon, and stars. How can I be lent to you? Not lending, not even a hair." "Ouch, you're doing it again. Gentler, gentler. Do you have something to say?" As it was once again stepped on by Su Yu, the drop of blood cried out miserably, "Respect the old and love the young, respect the old and respect the young, repeat this 3 times. Su Yu looked at it coldly. "There is a peerless and powerful enemy in the outside world, and if I'm killed, my soul space will sink into an eternal deathly stillness. At that time, you won't even have a chance to escape, as you will be trapped here forever. Lend me your power, and if I don't die, you will still have a chance to escape." The drop of blood stretched its neck and shouted, "No! I only have a single drop of blood left, and every time I use my power, my primordial energy will be slightly weakened. How can an old man like me endure your torment?" Su Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. Since he had already spoken to this point, how could he not understand that the drop of blood had already relented? "How about I give you a soul to replenish your primordial energy?" Su Yu asked. The drop of blood shook its head vigorously. "No. It's just a trifling all-creation realm soul, and it won't even be enough to fill the gaps between my teeth." All-creation realm? Su Yu's face darkened. If he could capture an all-creation realm soul and give it to him, would he still need to borrow its power? Moreover, this evil god didn't just want a single soul. "I will give you a divine master's soul. Do you want it or not?" Su Yu stared at the drop of blood. The drop of blood protested. "All creation realm. I said all creation realm. I said divine master." Su Yu's gaze became ice-cold. The droplet of blood snorted angrily. Back in those days, this divine emperor slaughtered the heavens and slaughtered the earth. No one could bargain with this divine emperor. Suddenly, a foot stepped on it, causing it to fall to the ground. "Ouch, my little heart almost fell out." "Fine, I'll do whatever you say. Divine master it is, this divine emperor is not a picky eater." Su Yu moved away from it and revealed a faint smile. "Deal." In the outside world, the heaven-covering palm seal was approaching the Zhenlong continent. The ground cracked open, and flames rushed out of it, turning the continent into a sea of flames. Many living beings closed their eyes in despair. In the end, they couldn't escape their fate. However, at this moment, Su Yu, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened them. A pair of deep eyes glowed with a strange crimson light. At the same time, a scarlet color seeped out of his pores. It was captivating red like liquid, as if fresh blood was flowing out. However, there was no smell of blood. Instead, there was a shocking evil aura. The Blood Emperor looked coldly at the destruction of the Zhenlong world. He stood quietly in the ice-cold starry sky and looked down from afar. He wore a confident smile on his face. But all of a sudden, he frowned slightly, as if he had sensed something. Then, his pupils shrank. "It's an aura from the same source as the evil aura of the formation." What was that? A treasure or a person? If it was a treasure, then perhaps it wouldn't be so terrifying. But if it was a human, then it would be too terrifying. That evil aura made him feel extremely uneasy. Xia Jingyu was shocked. She left Su Yu's embrace and looked at the blood-red color in shock. "Your bloodline of the evil ghost?" More accurately, it was the bloodline of the heretic god. Su Yu wore a faint smile on his face and kept a distance from Xia Jingyu, while the blood energy in his body surged out. The amount of blood mist was terrifying. First, it was the ruins, then the Twilight Mountains, then the Xianyu Prefecture, Shunye Island, the northern continent, the entire continent, and even the endless sea, were shrouded by the rolling blood fog. From the starry sky, the blue planet had suddenly become a blood-stained planet. However, the blood mist could not withstand the destruction of the palm print. It did not possess any power, as it could only devour power. "Zhenlong living beings, I am Su Yu," Su Yu said loudly, his voice spreading throughout the whole world. Valleys, streams, mountain peaks, forests, caves, cities, houses, Su Yu's voice could be heard from every corner of the world. All living beings were shocked. Su Yu was the Heavenly Law Alliance master. He was the king who had saved the Zhenlong continent in the past. At the juncture of extinction, all sounds were silent, and only Su Yu's voice was transmitted to every corner of the world. The whole world was listening to Su Yu's voice. The Zhenlong world has been destroyed twice. The first time was by the Jiuzhou Emperor, who sacrificed his life to allow you to continue living. The second time was when I reversed the flow of time and space, which gave you a short respite. Why were we destroyed so many times? Suyu questioned him. This was a question that lingered in everyone's hearts. Why did they always encounter such a crisis? It was because we were silent. When a powerful enemy destroyed the world, we were powerless. So, we kept silent and waited for our destruction. It was because we were too weak. When the world was destroyed, we didn't do anything. We just closed our eyes in despair. Suyu's words shook the hearts of all living beings. When despair descended upon them, they really didn't resist. They really didn't do anything because their enemy was too powerful. Now, when the world is destroyed once again, do you still want to keep silent? Do you still want to close your eyes and wait for someone else to decide your fate? Suyu asked in a loud voice. The hearts of countless living beings were shaken. They had never tried to resist because they couldn't. If you don't explode in silence, then you will die in silence. Do you still want to continue being the souls of a destroyed country and the slaves of death? The people in the dragon abyss clenched their fists tightly. They didn't want to. When the people of the continent raised their heads and looked at the sky, their eyes were burning. They didn't want to. The ferocious beasts in the forest roared angrily at the sky. They didn't want to. Since you don't want to, then fight with me. This time, we won't rely on the Jojo Emperor, nor will we reverse the flow of time. We will use our own power to create a new future for the Zhenlong world. Suyu shouted. Regardless of whether you are a human or a beast, whether you are a bird or a beast, whether you are a flower or a tree, whether you are a river or an ocean, please lend me your power. As his voice echoed out, the blood fog that engulfed the whole planet descended and engulfed all living beings. Regardless of whether you are weak or powerful, noble or lowly, please lend me your power now. He wanted to borrow the power of all of the Zhenlong world's living beings and gather all of their power for a battle. The blood fog surged into the dragon abyss. Jiu Yuanzhou looked at the figure in the sky and laughed. The younger generation will surpass us in time. I didn't manage to face the Blood Emperor head-on, but you did. I will lend you my cultivation, so that you can create a new future for the Zhenlong world's living beings and for our world. After he spoke, his body fused into the blood fog. Old Chen chuckled. Heavenly Law Alliance's members swear to follow the Alliance Master until death. I will also hand over my cultivation to you. Under his lead, the 10,000 Heavenly Law Alliance's members stepped into the blood fog. There is also the Annihilation Team. Luo Xiong shouted loudly as he led the Annihilation Team into the blood fog. The Phoenix Cabinet's Master, Phoenix Master Qiu, Gang Dalai Zi Yunxiang, and all the other people that Suyu was familiar with smiled as they also stepped into the blood fog. Ha ha ha, how can I miss out on a battle against an all-creation old monster? The King of Darkness hesitated for a moment before he looked at Suyu. He then laughed loudly as he held the god's slaughtering spear and stepped into the blood fog. In just a moment, all of the people in the dragon abyss had stepped into the blood fog, allowing Suyu to use their power to fight the Blood Emperor. All of the living beings on the continent, who were facing destruction, stepped into the blood fog under Suyu's command. Humans and beasts could also step into it. Trees, flowers, and grass were all burned into flames, which fused into the blood fog. Chapter 734. The fish in the water leaped out of the water, the insects burrowed out of the ground, and the ants and moths scrambled into the fog. Every spiritual being chose to contribute their strength as their blood boiled. In an instant, the Zhenlong world became deathly silent. The reason for that was because all of the living beings were gathered within the blood mist. Xia Jingyu stood beside Suyu and looked at his profile. She then covered her mouth and laughed. Brother Suyu, we all believe in you. With that, he stepped into the blood mist. At this moment, the palm print came crashing down, destroying the world. At that moment, Suyu suddenly opened his eyes. An unprecedented sense of power filled his heart. The blood fog that he released contained the power of all the living creatures in the Zhenlong continent. From the small flowers and trees to the large human experts, their powers were all entrusted to Su Yu. Su Yu's current power was unprecedented. In his perception, even tearing apart the heavens and earth and shattering the stars would be a piece of cake. The Blood Emperor, who was so powerful that he felt suffocated, now looked like an ordinary person. As for the world-destroying palm, Lin Fan could sense that it was ordinary and not strong at all. I also know the heaven-extinguishing divine palm. Su Yu raised his head and raised his palm. The blood mist that covered the Zhenlong world quickly gathered and formed a palm print of the same size. Within the palm print, one could see the figures of true dragons. Humans, beasts, insects, fish, birds, beasts, all living creatures were within. It was as if they were working together to form this palm imprint and collided with the world-destroying palm imprint. The rumbling sound swept across the surroundings. When the destructive palm print collided with the blood mist, it immediately collapsed. The palm print's momentum didn't diminish, and it continued to roll backward, shattering the starry sky. The Blood Emperor's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly retreated. His eyes flickered and he shouted, "A bunch of ants! No matter how many of them there are, they are still ants." Swimming Dragon ate Trigram's palm. The Blood Emperor attacked with his palm. Su Yu shook his head and calmly said, "A single spark can start a prairie fire. Even an ant can destroy the sun, the moon, and the stars if it gathers its power." Bang! The blood mist palm was like a hot knife through butter as it collided with the Blood Emperor in the starry sky. Puff! The Blood Emperor's arm shattered with a cracking sound, and his body was sent flying, shattering countless meteorites. "It's impossible for me to be defeated by a group of ants like you." The Blood Emperor didn't believe that an all-creation being would lose to a group of ants. Again, with a loud roar, the Blood Emperor's all-creation's power surged. The sun and moon crown revolved above his head as he fought against the blood palm. Puff! This time, he was sent flying again. His body split into pieces and was on the verge of collapse. Su Yu was right. Many ants could kill an elephant. The Blood Emperor wasn't fighting against a bunch of ants, but the entire Zhenlong world. He was fighting against a world. You are wrong. Indeed, you will not be defeated by us. Instead, you will be killed. Su Yu's eyes were filled with boundless coldness as he took a step forward and crossed thousands of miles of the Milky Way. On his head, there was also a crown of reincarnation of the sun and moon. After gathering the power of the true dragon world, his cultivation had also reached the all-creation realm. Underworld Pearl. As Su Yu sucked in the air, the Underworld Pearl, which had fallen in the Zhenlong world, traveled across millions of starry skies, teleported over, and landed in Su Yu's palm. The moment it entered his hand, Su Yu waved his hand. In the blink of an eye, the river of stars flowed backwards. Countless stars shattered and turned into dust. How could the Blood Emperor's body, which had collapsed, withstand such an attack? His body turned into a bloody mist on the spot. However, an angry roar reverberated from within the bloody mist, undying silver body. The shattered bloody mist gathered together once again, forming the Blood Emperor's body. At this moment, the Blood Emperor was extremely shocked. He couldn't help but admit that if he hadn't cultivated the undying silver body, he would have been the one who would have been killed, let alone all of them. He couldn't do anything to him. Little Su Yu, Zhenlong ants, all of you listen up. I want you to live, but heaven won't allow you to die. I want you to die, but heaven won't allow you to live. You were lucky this time, but next time, I will surely kill you, unless you can maintain this condensed state forever. The Blood Emperor took out the Emperor Tower, his eyes flickering with hatred and resentment. He was about to leave and retreat for the time being. He wanted to wait for them to scatter and become incapable of condensing their power before killing them all. Open! As he shouted, the Blood Emperor activated the Emperor Tower forcefully and prepared to cross over to the Jojo world. However, when he had just activated it, Suyu, who was behind him, crossed the Milky Way and chased after him. Suyu's eyes flickered coldly as he said, "I said that I would kill you this time. You will be erased from this world forever." Boom! After he spoke, he thrust his palm, which contained the whole world's power, at the same time struck the Blood Emperor's body. The Blood Emperor's body exploded. "Ah! Suyu, I will surely remember you." As he shouted angrily, the Blood Emperor gathered his body and escaped into the Emperor Tower's vortex. He wanted to cross over to the Jojo world. The Emperor Tower disappeared along with him, leaving behind only the slowly dissipating vortex. If Suyu allowed him to escape, he probably wouldn't have another chance to kill him. Suyu's gaze became ice-cold as he looked back at the blue planet, which was the home of all living beings. "Zhenlong's living beings, we can't go home until our great enemy has been eliminated. All living beings, follow me into Jojo, and we will slaughter all of them." His voice reverberated through the blood mist. "Kill him! Slaughter your way into Jojo. We will follow Alliance Master Su to the death and eliminate our enemies." As Suyu's body flickered, he left behind an afterimage in the starry sky, and escaped into the vortex just before it disappeared. The starry sky became deathly still, and only the tragic scenes of the battle remained, as well as a planet that had become deathly still. Suyu escaped into the vortex. It was unknown how many spaces he had crossed, but it seemed like he had crossed hundreds of millions of miles. The long journey made Suyu feel like he had gone through hundreds of years. Then, a terrifyingly dense spiritual energy assaulted him. An unfamiliar, colorful, and magnificent world appeared in front of him. Spiritual herbs, which he had never seen before, were growing here. If they were placed in the Zhenlong world, they would at least be priceless spiritual objects. Unknown birds and beasts were flying in the sky, and their cultivations were at least at the half-god realm. There were even many half-fairy realm birds. There were also many strange-shaped insects moving about on the mountain. Their cultivations were all at the Holy King realm, and some of them were even close to reaching the Dragon realm. If these creatures were in the Zhenlong world, they would all be overlords. But here they were just insects on the roadside. All of the people in the blood mist were shocked. They were all dumbfounded as they looked at the scene in front of them, which had overturned their common sense. Gulp! Someone swallowed a mouthful of saliva, while his Adam's apple moved. Even more people opened their eyes wide as they looked at the flourishing world in front of them. At this moment they felt like country bumpkins who had just entered a city. The Zhenlong world and the world in front of them were two completely different places. Is this an alien continent? Is this the homeland of an alien expert? Someone finally muttered. Excitement appeared in Jiu Yuanzhou's eyes. "Jojo, long time no see. I have finally returned." Jojo. They had reached the Jojo world. Suyu's eyes flickered with astonishment for a moment. However, he didn't forget that there was still a great enemy that he had yet to kill. His gaze swept the surroundings before it finally stopped in the west. There was a giant city there, which stretched across the horizon. Even though Suyu's eyes could penetrate 10,000 miles, he still couldn't see the end of the city. Its vastness was comparable to the Zhenlong continent's area. He suddenly recalled that Wuhan had once mentioned that the Zhenlong world's area was just the size of a human city in the Jojo world. At first, he didn't believe it, but now, he was deeply shocked. The Blood Emperor, whom Suyu was looking for, was also in the direction of that city. "Follow me, let's kill the Blood Emperor," Suyu shouted as he swept the blood mist toward the west. If one looked at him from afar, it would seem like a white-haired, red-eyed youth, who was covered in a sea of blood, had crossed space to attack them. He emitted a shocking evil aura, and he seemed like a peerless demon king. Wherever he passed, all living beings would retreat. His aura spread to the entire city, and caused a great commotion. What? An all creations aura? It even contains an evil aura. The expression of a late-stage divine master realm old monster in the city changed drastically. He then flew into the sky and disappeared without a trace. Awful. It's probably an evil all-creation old monster who has come to capture living beings to cultivate. Run away quickly. In an instant, the entire city seemed to be in an uproar. Densely packed figures of experts rushed into the sky and fled. If one looked at it from afar, it would seem like a beehive had been poked open, and many people were fleeing in fright. Suyu didn't pay attention to them, as his gaze was fixed on an inconspicuous corner of the city. Blood Emperor, can you escape? In a certain alley, the Blood Emperor, whose body was covered in blood and whose face was pale, exclaimed, "What? You chased me all the way to Jojo?" His face was filled with shock and anger. He had never expected that Suyu would dare to chase him all the way to Jojo. "Suyu, you are going too far!" The Blood Emperor roared crazily as he flew into the sky. However, just as he was about to fly out, a yellow and blue ball flew at him. Ah! As a miserable scream echoed out, the Blood Emperor was once again smashed into meat paste. Undying silver body! The Blood Emperor roared angrily as he used this technique once again to reform his body. After gathering, they fled to the west without another word. Humph! Suyu snorted coldly as he chased after him. After the two all-creation old monsters left, the people in the city descended into panic. Blood Emperor! Someone is chasing after him! The late-stage Divine Master, who had just returned, was dumbfounded. Impossible! Did I mishear him? The Blood Emperor reached the all-creation realm several hundred years ago, and his current fighting prowess was comparable to any of Jojo's kings. Only he could kill others, and no one could kill him. Moreover, he still had the even more terrifying Central Prefecture's king behind him. Who dares to chase after the Blood Emperor in the Central Prefecture? You can mishear him, but you can't misrecognize a person. The person who fled is undoubtedly the Blood Emperor. But who is the old monster who is chasing after him? Why have I never seen him before? He has white hair, blood-red eyes, a world-destroying evil energy, and a boundless sea of blood. Could he be a demonic cultivator? Jojo's demonic cultivator. Is another ruthless person going to appear? Why is he chasing after the infamous Blood Emperor? We must report this matter back to the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. The late-stage Divine Master's eyes were filled with shock as he muttered softly, before he left in a hurry. The people in the city also left one after another, bringing back this shocking news that shook Jojo. The Blood Emperor was being chased by a ruthless person, and this matter was enough to startle the whole world's factions. Chapter 735. As Suyu crossed countless mountains and rivers, he locked on to the Blood Emperor and smashed him into pieces. Along the way, he passed by dozens of great cities. All of them gave rise to a great commotion. Thus, the news that the Blood Emperor was being chased by a ruthless demonic cultivator spread throughout the whole Central Prefecture. This chase lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The Blood Emperor was smashed into pieces again and again, but he still managed to use the inextinguishable silver body to regenerate. On the 3rd day, they crossed a snowy plain. Lad, that's enough. The Blood Emperor's whole body was in a sorry state. His blood energy was declining, and his cultivation had dropped by more than 30%. The inextinguishable silver body really had a price, which was the drop of his cultivation. At the all-creation realm, even a small increase in one's cultivation would require a great price. Now it had dropped by 30%. Suyu didn't pay any attention to him, as he thrust the underworld pearl, which was a terrifying weapon that even the Blood Emperor couldn't deal with, at the same time. The Blood Emperor was infuriated, but he had to retreat and swallow his anger. Lad, to tell you the truth, we are almost in the Central Prefecture, which has many experts. If you continue to chase us, you will surely die. As for me, I will just use the inextinguishable silver body a few more times and lose some of my cultivation. Do you really want to die together with me? Su Yu's gaze became grave. They were almost in the central prefecture? When he turned his head and looked at the blood mist behind him, he saw that they were also exhausted. After all, if they were trapped in the central prefecture's territory and were besieged, how could they break out of the encirclement with their exhausted bodies? But could they let the Blood Emperor go just like that? No. Since the Blood Emperor already knew that they had arrived in the 9 prefectures, how could he let them off when they had such a deep grudge? He obviously wouldn't. Moreover, even if the Blood Emperor showed mercy, there was still the Central Prefecture's king. The Zhenlong world's living beings already knew about the feud between the Central Prefecture's king and the former Jiuzhou Emperor. Wasn't he worried that he would be punished by the other prefecture's kings? Just the fact that he had colluded with the Ghost World and killed the Jiuzhou Emperor was enough for the other prefecture's kings to besiege him and kill him. So, no matter what, the Central Prefecture's king wouldn't let them go. If the Blood Emperor returned, the Central Prefecture's king would kill all of them who had arrived in the 9 prefectures at all costs, even without the Blood Emperor's help. This was the world of the 9 prefectures, and it was needless to say how powerful a prefecture king was. Therefore, their existence must not be known by the Central Prefecture's king. The Blood Emperor must die. Otherwise, what awaited the true dragon living beings would be endless pursuit. However, the Blood Emperor who possessed the indestructible silver body couldn't be killed within a short period of time. There was only one way. Su Yu's eyes flickered with determination. He then opened his mouth, and an elixir that was emitting a 4-colored radiance slowly floated out of his mouth. Xia Jingyu's eyes flashed as she exclaimed, "Reversal pill!" However, more than half of the medicinal effect has already been lost. A complete heaven reversal pill would have 9 rainbow-colored veins. However, there were only 4 at this moment. Su Yu was able to reverse time and space by relying on the vitality of this divine elixir. He would consume his own lifespan and then use this life force to replenish his lifespan. Otherwise, how could Su Yu's mere lifespan of a few hundred years withstand such a huge reversal of time and space? Now that there were only 4 veined patterns left, he could borrow the vitality within them to reverse time and space. After taking a deep breath, Su Yu withdrew his blood-red eyes. His left eye was now filled with a dazzling purple splendor that blotted out the sky and the sun. "Time reversal!" Su Yu shouted in a low voice. As he was engulfed by the purple splendor, time started flowing backward. This time, it was just a simple reversal of time. There wasn't any spatial power flowing backward, so there wouldn't be any spatial changes. Instead, it was purely a reversal of time. The towering trees, which were several hundred zhang tall, started shrinking gradually to 100 zhang tall. Then, they turned into saplings, which were only an inch tall. Then, they turned into seeds, which then disappeared from the world. Time had returned to a time when they hadn't appeared. In just a short moment, several hundred years of time had been reversed. The price he had to pay for this was that one of the veins on the reversal pill had disappeared, and he had lost a quarter of his vitality. As for the Blood Emperor, he had unexpectedly returned to his youthful state from his middle-aged body. The Blood Emperor should have been happy that he had returned to his youthful state, but now, he was terrified and frightened. You want to reverse time and go back to a time when I wasn't even born?" Su Yu nodded. "That's right. No matter how powerful your undying silver body is, it won't be of any use." At this moment, the Blood Emperor was really flustered. While he teleported crazily in an attempt to escape from the region of the time reversal, he turned his head around and spoke sincerely. "Su Yu, it's all because of my carelessness. I admit that I was wrong. So, why don't we just stop here?" It seemed like he knew the reason why Su Yu was determined to kill him, so he spoke quickly. "I won't tell anyone about your existence, and I won't cause any trouble for you in the future. What do you think? Su Yu replied coldly, It's nothing. I'm more willing to trust a dead person. As he spoke, the time reversal of several hundred years occurred once again. The battle robe on the Blood Emperor's body loosened, and his body returned to its youthful state. When the Blood Emperor realized that he was facing an unprecedented crisis, he was both startled and angered. Lad Su Yu, will you only be satisfied after you kill me? As he spoke, he didn't forget to teleport away. However, Su Yu, who also possessed an all-creation cultivation, didn't let go of him. He was still enveloped by the time reversal. Su Yu replied coldly, But, when you destroyed the Zhenlong world 3 times, did you ever think about sparing our lives? Now that it's your turn, why are you begging for mercy? Even if you want to apologize, it's already too late. You must die for the Zhenlong world, for the Jiuzhou Emperor, and for the heroic spirits who died in the past. When the Blood Emperor realized that he couldn't make peace, he felt remorseful. Why didn't he just leave the Zhenlong world when he felt so restless? If he had just let the Zhenlong world's living beings go, he wouldn't have forced Su Yu into such a desperate situation and forced him to hunt him down. Remorse was useless, and fleeing was also useless. In just an instant, the Blood Emperor had returned from his youthful state to that of an 8-year-old child. Su Yu, if you want me to die, then don't even dream about having an easy time. The 8-year-old Blood Emperor was engulfed by the armor. His childish face was filled with resentment as he opened his mouth and spat out a black badge. The badge had a sun and a moon carved on it, as well as the words Central Prefecture. Although Su Yu didn't know what the badge's use was, it was obvious that the Blood Emperor's counterattack before his death was extremely terrifying. As he retreated quickly, the time reversal still enveloped the Blood Emperor, and his body started shrinking at a rapid pace. 8 years old, 7 years old, 6 years old, 5 years old, 4 years old, at this moment the Blood Emperor found it difficult to even hold the badge. Humph! It's already too late. The Blood Emperor snorted in a childish voice, but when Su Yu heard it, his pupils couldn't help but contract. Disappear from this world! Su Yu shouted in a low voice. As a purple light flickered, the Blood Emperor's body shrunk from 4 years old to 3 years old, then from 3 years old to 2 years old, then from 2 years old to 1 year old. In the end, his body shrunk from 1 year old to that of a newborn. He now had the body of a baby. However, his gaze, which was filled with resentment, didn't disappear even after a long time. You will all die. The Blood Emperor left behind a wisp of his will before he disappeared as time reversed. The living beings in the blood fog heaved a sigh of relief. They had chased him from the Zhenlong world to the Jiuzhou world and killed him countless times. Now they had finally managed to erase him from this world. From this moment onward, there was no longer a person called the Blood Emperor in this world. However, they still couldn't relax for the time being, as the black badge left behind by the Blood Emperor before his death made all of them feel restless. As Su Yu looked at the black badge, he didn't even give it a second thought before he led the crowd and retreated quickly. Let's leave this place. Su Yu, who was engulfed by the all-creation realm's aura, crossed space and teleported away. However, what made his scalp turn numb was that even though he had crossed 1,000,000 miles of mountains and rivers, the black badge was still following them closely. Their positions hadn't changed in the slightest. It was as if the badge had been teleported along with them. Su Yu's pupils contracted as he crossed space once again. After crossing 1,000,000 miles of mountains and rivers, Su Yu's expression became grave. The badge was still following them, and they couldn't get rid of it. Su Yu stopped and muttered to himself for a moment. He then raised his hand and waved it, causing the blood fog, which filled the sky, to return to his body. After losing the Zhenlong world's living being's power, Su Yu's cultivation went back to normal. Brother Su Yu, can't we escape? Xia Jingyu flew to Su Yu's side and stood next to him. She looked at the strange black badge behind them and felt restless. Su Yu shook his head, then nodded. It's more accurate to say that I can't escape, as this badge has locked onto me. Xia Jingyu immediately understood Su Yu's intentions. Let them scatter and escape. I will stay behind to accompany you. Everyone understood Su Yu's intentions. He wanted them to escape, while Su Yu stayed behind to deal with the strange black badge. However, Su Yu unexpectedly rejected her. No, all of you must leave. Moreover, you must all leave together, and you mustn't act alone. The Jojo world is vast, and it is filled with dangers and unknowns to all of you. So, you must unite and look for a secluded place to live. Su Yu turned his head around and swept his gaze over the crowd. Our statuses are special, and we mustn't expose our Zhenlong identities. Otherwise, we will surely be killed. So, you must forget your identities and blend into the Jojo world. Everyone was silent, as they could hear that Su Yu was arranging a way out for them. It seemed like he was leaving them some last word. Along the way, according to my observations, there are many small towns and villages with hundreds of thousands of people, and their cultivation bases are similar to yours. So, you can disguise yourselves as people who have migrated from other regions. Then, you can establish your own towns and live as Jojo's people. He then added, after you settle down, you must send the talented youths to the Jojo world's factions to be nurtured. Then, you must secretly strengthen our own power. Only then will we have an opportunity to return to the Zhenlong world and protect it. He then added, this is my last order as the Heavenly Law Alliance's master. Old Chun turned his head around and looked at the 100,000 people behind him. He then raised his voice and asked, did you all hear me? The 100,000 people quietly looked at Su Yu, their hearts filled with reverence and gratitude. Since you all heard me, then you should all leave. I will stay behind. Old Chun tried to stay behind, as he didn't want Su Yu to face such a difficult situation again. However, he was immediately interrupted by Su Yu. No, I said that all of you are not allowed to stay behind. You must all leave. Chapter 736. If you stay here, I'll have to take care of myself, and I won't be able to use my full power. I might still have a chance if I go alone, and even if I can't face them, escaping won't be a problem, Su Yu said confidently. Xia Jingyu bit her red lips, wanting to say something but hesitating. Su Yu put his arm around her shoulder and kissed her forehead in front of 100,000 people. This was Su Yu's way of expressing his feelings to the Zhenlong living beings. Xia Jingyu's delicate body trembled as she stood rooted to the ground. Jingyu, help me take care of Xian'er, okay? If I'm still alive, I'll come back to look for you, Su Yu said. This was a request that Xia Jingyu couldn't refuse, as she was the only one who could take care of Xian'er in Su Yu's place. After she hesitated for a long while, she looked into Su Yu's eyes and nodded. Fine, I promise you, but you must also promise me that you will surely come back. Su Yu nodded. Before long, under the protection of the King of Darkness, all of them fled to the east. Only Su Yu and the strange black badge were left in the same place. After Su Yu witnessed them leaving, he took a look at the black badge and tried to fly several hundred meters away. As expected, the badge locked onto Su Yu and followed him. As such, he was not worried. Instead, he heaved a sigh of relief. In that case, Xia Jingyu and the others would be safe. As he stared at the badge, Su Yu pondered over its purpose. However, right at this moment, the black token suddenly shone with black light. Boundless black light shot out, forming a light screen in front of Su Yu. In the light screen, a young man sat on a crystal throne. He wore a golden robe embroidered with 9 flying dragons. Each dragon was like a living creature, emanating an astonishing spirituality. The boundless aura of an emperor rushed over. It was as if the young man before him was the emperor of the mortal world. Su Yu stared at him, wanting to see his opponent's face clearly. However, as soon as he looked at him, his eyes hurt. He couldn't even look at the other party's face. Since Blood Emperor used the death token, he must be dead. The martial emperor in the image was calm and composed. He wasn't moved by the death of a peak, all creation being like the Blood Emperor. Su Yu's gaze was calm. Who are you? Blood Emperor is my bright light guard leader. Who do you think I am? The Emperor said calmly. Central Prefecture's king. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. The Emperor mentioned by the other party was actually the Central Prefecture's king. Tell me, who killed the Blood Emperor? The Blood Emperor marked you before he died, so you must know the inside story, the Central Prefecture's king said calmly, but his tone was like a natural order. Su Yu's gaze shifted, and he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, intending to escape. However, the moment he moved, the Central Prefecture's king looked over. That one look made Su Yu feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. The blood in his body froze, and he was unable to move. Even the all creations were not this terrifying. What realm had the Central Prefecture's king reached? Forget it. I'm about to start cultivating. If you don't want to tell me, I won't ask too much, the Central Prefecture's king said calmly. As he spoke, he grabbed at Su Yu through the light screen. This grab caused Su Yu's soul to tremble violently. He was actually being forcefully pulled away from his body. What kind of divine ability was this? It could actually capture souls through space? The light screen was just a projection. The real Central Prefecture's king was far away. However, even after crossing such a great distance, it could still easily capture Su Yu's soul. Su Yu's soul struggled to return to his physical body. However, the grabbing power could not be shaken in the slightest. Seeing his soul being pulled out of his body bit by bit, Su Yu's intuition told him that once his soul was pulled out, he would die. The Central Prefecture's king wanted to kill Su Yu so easily. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, the Central Prefecture's king did not reveal any killing intent. It was just like killing an ant, which he did not need to use any killing intent at all. His soul was gradually being pulled out, but Su Yu could not resist it. His body was still confined, and he could not move at all. At this critical moment, Su Yu glanced at the fate-altering elixir in his palm. Only half of its pattern was left. No, its color was very dim. Seeing his soul was about to be pulled out completely, Su Yu clenched his teeth, and a purple light shot out from his eyes. Time reversal. Time immediately reversed. Su Yu's physical body returned to before it was confined. His soul, which had been pulled out, was also slowly returning to his physical body. In the light screen, the Central Prefecture's king, who was calm and composed, could not help but look through the light screen. Then, he said in surprise, time reversal? Unbelievable! To Su Yu's surprise, although time was clearly reversed, the power that was pulling his soul was not affected at all. The power of time was not enough to shake it at all. In other words, the time reversal created by Su Yu was not enough to shake the unfathomable Central Prefecture's king. Interesting. I want to see what's so strange about you. The Central Prefecture's king curled up the corners of his mouth, showing his interest. All of a sudden, the power that was pulling Su Yu became twice as strong. Most of his soul was forcibly pulled out of his physical body. Only his head soul was firmly attached to his physical body. What? It seems like there is something in your soul that even I can't shake. The Central Prefecture's king was even more interested. As soon as he finished speaking, the power that was pulling Su Yu became more than twice as strong. Buzz, buzz. With a slight vibration, the divine nine-dragon cauldron in Su Yu's mind was forcibly pulled out. This was the first time that the divine nine-dragon cauldron had been forcibly moved. Hiss. Interesting. I'm even more curious now. The Central Prefecture's king was surprised. He had already exerted 60% of his power, but still could not pull Su Yu's soul out. Even if it was an all-creation old monster, 20% of his power was enough to pull it out. The Central Prefecture's king smiled as he exerted all of his power. Suddenly, the power that was pulling Su Yu's soul became 5 times stronger. Howl! A dragon's roar came from the divine nine-dragon cauldron. The red liquid in the cauldron was shaking violently like a raging sea. The whole divine nine-dragon cauldron was constantly pulled out of Su Yu's body along with his soul. Finally, a corner of the divine nine-dragon cauldron was revealed. The Central Prefecture's king's smiling face froze the moment the corner of the divine nine-dragon cauldron appeared. Then, it turned into confusion and thought. Immediately, his pupils constricted in shock and horror. The divine nine-dragon cauldron. The divine cauldron of the ancient god Jiulong. The Central Prefecture's king stood up from his throne and cried out involuntarily. His calm face was covered by shock and ecstasy. This divine cauldron actually came to the Jiuzhou continent. The Central Prefecture's king's eyes were bursting with excitement. Ha! Ha! God is helping me. This divine cauldron actually fell into my hands. Su Yu was even more shocked. The divine nine-dragon cauldron had been recognized. Who was the ancient god Jiulong? Did the divine nine-dragon cauldron belong to him? However, this was not the time to think. Once he was caught by the Central Prefecture's king, Su Yu would definitely die, even if he wanted to keep it a secret. Let's go all out. Su Yu's eyes were fixed on the black token. The purple glossy token was completely focused on the token. The old token fell into the flow of time. It went from old to half old, and from half old to brand new. The brand new state meant that this token had just been made not long ago. If it continued to go back in time, the token would return to the time when it had not been made yet. When the token was destroyed, the light screen would disappear naturally. Then, the Central Prefecture's king would not be able to pull out his soul again. Although the Central Prefecture's king could not be affected by the time going back in time, it could affect this token. As expected, the Central Prefecture's king's face changed. Stop! He was going to rob Su Yu of the divine nine-dragon cauldron, so how could he stop? However, right at this moment, with a cracking sound, the fate-altering pill broke into powder in Su Yu's palm. After going back in time many times, his vitality was finally used up. At the most critical moment, Su Yu's heart sank. The Central Prefecture's king was slightly relieved. Then, his eyes turned cold. Humph! Do you think you are qualified to have what I want? As he spoke, he increased his strength. Su Yu's soul was pulled out again, and the divine nine-dragon cauldron was pulled out again. If this continued, Su Yu's soul would be taken away by the Central Prefecture's king. At this critical moment, Su Yu clenched his teeth. Then, a purple light appeared in his right eye again. Time going back in time. The Central Prefecture's king was shocked. Damn it! Then, the Central Prefecture's king attacked Su Yu with his palm. Su Yu's palm, which contained the infinite power of heaven and earth, was about to penetrate the light screen, which made Su Yu feel like he was going to die. Space vortex. Su Yu's right eye shone brightly, which wrapped his body and soul together. At this moment, the black token, which was going back in time, couldn't bear it anymore. So, it became a half-finished product. As the light screen shook violently, the Central Prefecture's king's power was weakened by more than half. Now, the divine nine-dragon cauldron could no longer be moved. Su Yu's soul returned to his body and went into the space vortex. Stop! The Central Prefecture's king was furious. It seemed like his precious treasure had been taken away. However, the light screen trembled slightly. Then, it was destroyed completely. Just a little bit more, and he would have been able to leave his corpse behind. Millions of miles away, there was a human city that was 10 times the size of the Zhenlong world. There was a dazzling palace floating in the sky above the human city that spanned millions of miles. The 10 all-creations-old monsters sat quietly around the palace, like stars surrounding the moon. In the vast hall of the palace, a majestic figure was standing with his hands clasped behind his back. He was wearing a yellow robe with a golden dragon on it, and he had a white jade crown on his head. Behind him was a dazzling light. His eyes, which were as deep as the stars, could penetrate the starry sky. They were ice-cold and indifferent, as if they were looking down on all living beings. He had the temperament of a superior being. He was wearing a golden robe, which made him seem even more noble. "Master, what happened?" A young girl, who was sitting beside the throne, asked curiously. The young girl was 18 years old. Her eyes were as bright as snow, and they were filled with coldness. Although she was a young girl, her figure was perfect. She had a slim waist, plump breasts, and exquisite curve. However, if one observed her carefully, he would discover that there was a sun, moon, and stars crown on her head. It was an all-creation old monster's vision. "Summon the Golden Light Guards." The Central Prefecture's king's expression was calm. The young girl bowed and left. After a short while, she came back, followed by 5 people, who were all wearing golden armor. Each of them had a sun and moon crown on their head. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The 5 all-creation old monsters knelt down to pay their respects. "You may dispense with the formalities. Let's look for this person." The Central Prefecture's king waved his sleeves, and a light screen floated in the middle of the hall. Chapter 737. Find him. Bring him back at all costs. The last place he appeared was at the border between the Central Prefecture and the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. The Central Prefecture's king said calmly. The 5 golden light old monsters accepted the order. The leader of the golden light old monsters asked hesitantly, "May I ask if you want him alive or dead?" "I don't care if they're dead or alive, I just want their bodies." The 5 golden lights nodded and left respectfully. The girl stared at the young man on the screen. "Master, what kind of crime did he commit that you would personally order for him to be hunted down?" The Central Prefecture's king looked at the young girl with a gentle look in his eyes. "He is a vicious and evil person. The Blood Emperor was killed by him. I am worried that he will harm the people of the Central Prefecture. Therefore, I must arrest him and bring him to justice." The young lady was slightly shocked. "Uncle Blood Emperor is already dead?" The Central Prefecture's king sighed and said with sadness in his eyes, "Yes, he has been killed by him." The young lady clenched her fists tightly and gritted her pearly white teeth. Mist swirled in her eyes and she was about to cry. "Uncle Blood Emperor is such an amiable person, how could he do it?" As she stared at Suyu in the image, flames of hatred rose in the young girl's eyes. She then said, "Master, please let me go and kill him with my own hands. The bright golden guard's cultivation is on par with Uncle Blood Emperor's, so I'm afraid that he won't be able to harm us. Let me do it, and we'll definitely succeed." The Central Prefecture's king stared at the girl for a moment, then shook his head and said, "There's no need for that. You just need to focus on your cultivation and quickly cultivate the Jade Maiden Heavenly Frost art to the top class. You can just leave this matter to the Golden Light Guards. Later on, I will also arrange for your senior brother to go and kill this demon together." The young girl was unwilling. The Central Prefecture's king revealed a gentle look in his eyes and sighed softly. "I know that the Blood Emperor saved your life in the past. However, you must act rationally. Your top priority is to cultivate your cultivation technique. Everything else must be postponed." "Han Xian understands." The girl gave up and slowly nodded. The Central Prefecture's king nodded and said, "Yes, you may leave." The young girl turned around and left. When she passed by the light screen, she stared at Suyu from the corner of her eyes. She clenched her fists tightly, while a murderous intent flickered in her eyes. A trillion miles away, huge waves rose on the calm lake surface as a spatial vortex suddenly appeared above the lake. A white-haired figure fell out and into the lake. It was none other than Suyu. However, the current Suyu was beyond recognition. The surface of his body kept peeling off layer after layer of fragments. His arms, torso, face, and entire body were like this, as if he was shedding his skin. His youthful and smooth skin had become extremely rough and wrinkled. His face was old, his chi and blood were declining, and his muscles were atrophied. He was an old man who had reached the end of his life and was about to enter the earth. Suyu crawled out of the lake with great difficulty. His whole body was drenched, and he cut a sorry figure. As Suyu stood by the lake and looked at his own reflection, his face was calm, but his heart was filled with bitterness. At the last moment, the fate-altering elixir's life force was exhausted, and Suyu paid the price of his own lifespan to turn back time. Although he managed to successfully resolve the crisis, the reversal of time, which seemed like a short moment, cost Suyu almost 100 years of his lifespan, turning him from a young man to an old man. Central Prefecture's king. If I don't take revenge for this, I am not a human. Suyu clenched his fists and said coldly. Regardless of whether he had forced the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron into a corner or learned the secret of the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, he had to eliminate the Central Prefecture's king. Now, what Suyu was most worried about was Xia Jingyu and the others. He was wondering whether they would be able to conceal themselves and establish a Zhenlong clan's territory. Moreover, where were they? How could he find them? The spatial vortex's teleportation distance had already been verified, and it could teleport them from the Zhenlong world to a galaxy that was millions of miles away. He had no idea where they were at the moment. Everything will depend on your luck. Suyu sighed softly. It was only now that he cared about himself. Suyu sat down cross-legged and inspected his body's condition. He wouldn't have known if he hadn't taken a look, but the moment he did, he was shocked. His body had deteriorated greatly, and it was especially the case for his internal organs, flesh and blood. His internal organs were aging, and their functions had declined sharply. Even his breathing was difficult. As for his flesh, it had deteriorated greatly. In the past, although Suyu couldn't be considered strong, his flesh and blood contained a powerful energy, which made his body powerful. Now, his qi and blood were weak, his muscles were atrophied, and he didn't have any strength left in his body. Even when he stood, he felt like his legs were sore. Moreover, his cultivation's meridians were also in a grave condition. His meridians had shrunk severely, resulting in the stagnation of zhenqi. His zhenqi could not circulate at all, not even a single strand of spiritual energy. This was because he had successfully cultivated the first dragon's body, and his meridians had reached the level of the fairy realm. Otherwise, his meridians would have been broken, and they would not have shrunk. The only parts that were still intact were his dantian and soul. The 6 vital energy crystals in his dantian were still in perfect condition and had not been affected at all. His vital energy was filled to the brim, and once his internal energy channels were unobstructed, he could consider making a breakthrough to the fairy realm. As for his soul, it seemed that because of the existence of the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, his soul was not affected. These 2 points made Suyu feel gratified. After this, he only needed to use the natural spiritual treasures to make his body healthy and clear. Then, he would be able to break through to the fairy realm. Once he broke through to the fairy realm, his lifespan would increase, and his old appearance would gradually recover. It could be said that restoring the unobstructed meridians was of utmost importance. All in all, his physical condition wasn't very optimistic. His body was on the verge of destruction, and he was even weaker than an ordinary old man. Perhaps a middle-aged man could pose a great threat to Suyu. Without the support of zhenqi, many magical treasures and cultivation techniques could not be used. Only soul secret arts could be used. For example, soul separation, soul flame, and heaven's sun gazing at air's soul control. As such, he could barely protect himself. As long as his opponent wasn't stronger than the early stage of the fairy realm, he should be able to deal with them. Now, he had to find a way to find a town and obtain spirit medicine to nourish his body. However, when he stood up and looked around, Suyu was dumbfounded. All he could see were desolate mountains and precipitous cliffs. He was at the bottom of the valley, and there was only an old mountain road to pass through. The mountain path was covered in weeds, almost burying the road's surface. No one had come here for at least 3 years. Su Yu's body was weak, so he couldn't walk very far. He had lost his jinchi and could not fly. "Are you trying to kill me?" Su Yu didn't know whether he should laugh or cry as he looked at his surroundings blankly. He was a dignified half-fairy, and he had just killed an all-creation old monster. Yet, in the end, he was going to be trapped in this desolate forest. Da-da! Suddenly, the crisp sound of horse hooves could be heard clearly from afar. What a coincidence! Did someone just pass by? Su Yu pricked up his ears and listened carefully. He was slightly surprised. The sound of horse hooves was muffled and muffled. It was obviously a herd of horses. Could it be bandits? Su Yu smacked his lips. In this desolate forest, only bandits would appear in large numbers. Even if they weren't bandits, their identities were unknown, and it was impossible to know whether they were good or evil. Su Yu was now at his weakest, so he had to be careful. Looking around, he saw that the bottom of the valley was flat and had no cover. There were only a few rocks of different sizes. Although he could hide himself, it was easy to hide from one person, but difficult to hide from a group of people. Suddenly, he saw the lake behind him, and his eyes lit up. He moved his weak body with great difficulty and dove into the lake again. As long as the other party left, he could climb out again. Dong! The sound of horse hooves approached, causing ripples to form in the lake. Su Yu counted in his heart. His body couldn't stay in the ice-cold lake for too long. Once the group of horses left, he would have to get up quickly. However, his face stiffened when the sound of horse hooves gradually became weaker. They had stopped. They were right by the lake. The sky is about to turn dark. The demonic ape mountain range is in front of us. That demonic ape might be patrolling nearby. If we fight it at night, we humans will be at a disadvantage. It's inadvisable to move forward. Let's set up camp by the lakeside. We'll set up camp tomorrow morning. The leader of the group was a middle-aged man. He was in his early 30s, and his cultivation was at the level 1 fairy realm. He had a calm demeanor and bright eyes. As he looked at the mountain range in front of them, he waved his hand and signaled for them to stop. Da-da-da! At this moment, the group of horses arrived one after another, and a carriage, which was surrounded by many guards, slowly arrived. The carriage had exquisite carvings, and it was made of top-grade fragrant wood. It was fragrant and contained a faint spiritual energy. Coupled with the fact that it had a half-fairy and a fairy realm guard, it was obvious that even if it wasn't extremely rich, it was still extremely noble. At the very least, no faction in the Zhenlong world was qualified to have a fairy realm guard. The leader of the fairies rode his horse to the carriage and said, "First miss, second miss, the demonic ape mountain range is just ahead of us. For safety's sake, we should set up camp by the lake for a day and set off tomorrow morning." As the carriage's beaded curtain was lifted, a noble woman's face was revealed. Her hair was combed into a phoenix bun, and a dragon and phoenix hairpin was inserted on top of her head. Her eyebrows were long and raised, and her limpid eyes shone brightly. The tip of her nose was high, and her lips were red. Her skin was snow-white, and her curves were beautiful. The curves of her body were beautiful. She was tall and exquisite, exceptionally perfect. "That's all. Let's rest here and set off tomorrow," the woman instructed calmly. At this moment, a pretty and adorable face squeezed through the beaded curtain. Her cheeks still had some baby fat, and her eyes were clear and bright, reflecting the sky. Her face was full of smiles, and she was the complete opposite of the beautiful, cold, and arrogant woman. "Is there a lake? That's great. Big Sister and I have been on the move for days, and we haven't had a bath in the past few days. If we don't wash up, we will get lice," the cute and pretty young girl said happily. The noble woman furrowed her brows slightly. "You have no manners. If you don't know how to speak, then don't speak." It was indeed rude of her to say that she wanted to take a bath in front of a man. The cute young girl shrank her neck and stuck out her tongue. She then looked at the beautiful woman in fear, as if she was an obedient child. Big sister, I'm sorry. I was wrong. The noble woman cast a glance at her calmly, while disgust flickered in her eyes. She didn't pay any attention to her, so she got out of the carriage. Suyu vaguely heard the word bath, and he felt miserable. He couldn't come out, but he also couldn't hide. Suyu chuckled bitterly, and he could only grit his teeth and bear it. He then sneaked into the reeds and waited for them to fall asleep. Night quickly fell. After the meal, the maids left, and there were only a few female guards left by the lake. Big sister, don't you want to come with me? The cute young girl asked. The noble woman, who was wearing a ferret shawl, replied calmly, The water is cold, so I don't want to go. If you want to go, you can go by yourself. The cute young girl was disappointed, but she still took a change of clothes and went into the lake to wash up. After she left, the noble woman spoke to the maids next to her, Prepare to change your clothes. Let's go to the other side. As she spoke, she looked at the cute young girl, who was washing up by the lake, before she expressionlessly walked toward the other side of the lake. The maids who were following her looked at the cute young girl and mocked her disdainfully. Even the family master's bastard child is worthy of bathing with the young miss? Do you really think that just because you call her second miss, you really have the young Miss Precious body? The noble woman didn't pay any attention to her, and she just looked at the lake. Since she had clearly refused to take a bath, she would have to take a bath quietly to save her face. However, this lake wasn't big, so how could she take a bath quietly? All of a sudden, she saw a dense patch of reeds, which was the perfect place to hide her body. Let's go over there. The noble woman revealed a smile, then lifted her skirt and walked over. She quickly took off her clothes, revealing a perfect, blood-curdling beauty in front of her. She had towering breasts, a curvaceous waist, and long, slender legs. Everything about her was perfect. Her jade-like feet tapped the cold water lightly. Although it was cold, it wasn't too cold. The noble woman, who hadn't taken a bath for many days, revealed a delighted look. She then stepped into the water and took a bath. Pop! All of a sudden, the sound of water rippling echoed from the patch of reeds behind her. It seemed like someone was stepping on the reeds and slowly swimming over. The lake had already been inspected by the guards, and there weren't any ferocious beasts in it. Moreover, there were people keeping watch in the vicinity, so no evil person could sneak in. The only possibility was that her younger sister, who was taking a bath on the other side, had sneaked over. The noble woman was aware of her younger sister's naughtiness, so she furrowed her brows. She was quite displeased, but she still wore a calm expression. You came? Come over, let's take a bath together. But, don't make any noise. Suyu had stayed in the patch of reeds for too long, and his frail body couldn't bear the night's cold. So, he could only swim back to the shore cautiously. However, when he was just about to climb out, he was startled by a sudden voice. Oh no! I've been discovered! When Suyu came back to his senses, he was startled. Take a bath together? Which family's woman is so slutty as to invite a man to take a bath with her in the middle of the night? When she didn't hear any movement behind her, the noble woman became displeased and shouted, Why aren't you coming over? Do you want me to invite you? Chapter 738. Suyu turned around and took a look at her. Her curvaceous back was exquisite and graceful. Her skin was as smooth as a piece of unpolished jade. Under the weak bonfire, it glowed with a faint luster. Her back was very beautiful, but in Suyu's eyes, there was only disgust. What's wrong with you? The noble lady frowned slightly. Her younger sister's silence made her feel that something was wrong. She subconsciously looked back. But what he saw in front of him was not his sister, but an old man with disheveled hair and drenched in sweat. Ghost! The noble woman shrieked, her pupils constricting. Suyu's whole body was in a mess. His wet long hair covered his face, revealing only his eyes. In the dark night, he did look somewhat terrifying. Misunderstanding? Only then did Su Yu realize. Perhaps the noble lady had mistaken him for someone else. When Su Yu saw that she was about to shriek once again, he pounced on her without any hesitation and pressed her against the reeds, while covering her mouth with his right hand to prevent her from shrieking. Although his body was weak, it was still possible for him to push down a delicate woman. Of course, the woman had to have no cultivation. Unfortunately, not only did the woman have cultivation, she was also not weak. Pervert! The noble woman mistakenly thought that Su Yu was trying to take advantage of her, so she instinctively resisted. She condensed a mass of vital energy in her palm and struck Su Yu's shoulder. Bang! Without any suspense, Su Yu's palm strike sent him flying, and he fell into the reeds. The huge commotion naturally attracted the surrounding guards. The noble woman quickly put on her clothes and came out from the reed. "Miss, what happened?" The maidservant's expression changed slightly as she realized that something was wrong. She immediately stood in front of the noble lady and stared at the pitch-black reeds. "Someone, the young lady is in danger." Walala, a group of armed guards rushed over. The leader of the men in his 30s had a sharp look in his eyes. "Miss, what happened?" The noble woman tugged at her long gown, her delicate body shivering. Clearly, she had not recovered from the fright just now. "I'm fine." But after calming down, the noble woman said, "It's probably some water beast that ran into the reeds." The leader of the guards said, "This subordinate did not handle this matter well and caused Miss to be frightened. Please punish me." The noble woman shook her head. "Forget it. You have limited manpower. It's inevitable that you'll be negligent. Return to your post immediately." The leader of the guards glanced at the reeds and said, "Why don't I order someone to sweep the reeds? If the aquatic beast is poisonous, it will be a hidden danger." "Forget it. We'll depart tomorrow. There's no need to waste time here. Return to your post." The noble woman shook her head. The leader of the guards no longer insisted and led his men away. After they left, the noble woman's calm face suddenly became cold, and her eyes were filled with killing intent. "Shoutao, secretly kill the perverted thief in the reeds. I've already injured him. Remember, clean your hands and feet, don't leave any blood behind." When the maid heard this, she was shocked. Just now, the young miss actually encountered a perverted thief? This was no small matter. The young miss had a noble status. If it was said that she had encountered a pervert while bathing, it would be hard to avoid being speculated and criticized by others. It would be bad for her reputation. Most importantly, the young miss had a very important engagement. If the news reached the fiancé's ears, it would be troublesome. Therefore, the young miss acted as if nothing had happened and sent the guards away. Xiao Tao's face turned cold. What a perverted thief! How dare he set his sights on the young miss? "Don't worry, miss, I'll leave his corpse intact." With a cold snort, Xiao Tao walked into the reeds to look for the perverted thief that her young miss had mentioned. The reeds weren't big, and after looking around, there was no trace of him. After the time it took to drink half a cup of tea, the noble woman frowned. "Nothing? Are you sure? This matter can't be leaked." Her engagement was very important to her future and her family. It was only because of luck that it was made possible. She couldn't allow this matter to reach the fiancé's ears. Xiao Tao nodded. "Yes, I'm sure. Could it be that young miss killed him with a palm strike, and his corpse sank to the bottom of the lake? Dead?" The noble woman pondered, recalling the scene just now. After a while, she was a little uncertain. The other party doesn't seem to have any cultivation. It's not impossible for me to kill him with that palm strike. Feeling uneasy, the noble woman hesitated for a while before giving up and going back. When she passed by the lake, her younger sister was still happily playing in the stream, humming a tuneless and light song. The noble woman was unhappy and said, "Why aren't you going ashore? The night is deep and the water is cold. If you fall sick, how are you going to explain it to father and mother?" The cute and pretty girl immediately stopped humming and swam back like a deer. The noble woman stared at her and returned to the tent unhappily. "Oh, I made a mistake again and made you unhappy." The cute and pretty girl blamed herself. "I'm so stupid." The cute and pretty girl knocked her head in annoyance. She was dumbfounded for a while, but she quickly became optimistic again. She muttered to herself, "Since you came to call me, doesn't it mean that you care about me? I almost forgot about your kindness. I must quickly go back and apologize." As she spoke, she clumsily climbed ashore. But all of a sudden, he caught a glimpse of a person in the water from the corner of his eye. The person was lurking weakly under the water. If an ordinary person met her, they would surely be frightened. However, the cute and pretty girl's reaction was slow. "Well, uncle, are you also swimming?" As she spoke, she put on a loose white robe and squatted by the lake. She rested her chin on her hands and looked at Suyu, who was swimming ashore. Suyu was startled, so he came out of the water and looked around. He felt a burning pain in his shoulder, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. That damned woman was really ruthless. If it wasn't for his strong body, that palm strike would have been enough to shatter his shoulder. As he looked at the silly girl in front of him, Suyu vigilantly retreated. "Well, uncle, where are you going?" the cute and pretty girl asked. "Are you a wandering old man?" "Old man?" Suyu was startled. He was only 2 or 3 years older than the girl in front of him, yet he was being addressed as an old man. "Ahem, I've been stranded here and have disturbed you. Goodbye." Suyu's body was weak, and his shoulder had been injured. Now that he had caught a cold, his body was even weaker. He urgently needed to find a place to warm himself. The cute and pretty girl hurriedly stood up and waved her hand at him. "Uncle, quickly come up. The water is so cold, so come back to the camp with me to warm yourself up." Is this little girl completely unguarded?" Suyu looked at the camp and asked hesitantly, "Miss, may I ask who you are?" The girl replied, "I'm from the Blue Mountain Ranges Yuan family. Our Yuan family is famous for making elixirs. My father, my mother, and my sister love to help people. Come with me. My sister will surely be very happy." In her heart, her sister was beautiful, noble, and kind. She respected her most. "Miss, may I ask who you are?" Suyu asked. The girl patted her chest and said, "Hee, I'm the Yuan family's second Miss, Yuan Yingying." "Second Miss?" Suyu's eyes lit up, and he was on the verge of tears. Since she had taken the initiative to save him, he wouldn't face any danger if he stayed with them. Suyu didn't hesitate any longer, so he stood up and followed Yuan Yingying back to her tent. "You should warm yourself up, while I ask my sister's maid for some food." Yuan Yingying then ran out of the tent. After a short while, she came back with 2 pieces of jerky. Suyu was really hungry, as he hadn't eaten anything for a long time. So, he quickly gobbled them down. "Hee, do you want more? I will go and ask for some more." Yuan Yingying wore a sweet smile as she looked at Suyu, whose complexion had become much better. Suyu waved his hand at her and said, "No, I don't need it. It's already enough. Many thanks for saving me a meal, and I will surely repay it in the future." "I don't need it. It's just 2 pieces of jerky." Yuan Yingying was slightly embarrassed, and when she saw Suyu's tattered clothes, she quickly said, "Uncle, please wait for a moment. I will go and find some clean clothes for you." Suyu nodded and looked at her as she left. All of a sudden, Suyu looked outside the tent and squinted his eyes. "Who is it?" Clatter! The sound of chaotic footsteps could be heard. 4 bodyguards, who were all armed with blades, rushed in and surrounded Suyu. At the same time, a maid opened the tent's flap, and a tall, beautiful woman walked in with an ice-cold expression. It's no wonder that Yingying asked for jerky. "It's really you." As she stared at Suyu, her expression became even colder. "Drag him out and kill him immediately." This woman wanted to kill Suyu without uttering a single word. Suyu didn't know this woman's identity, but he knew why she wanted to kill him. She had just taken a look at him, yet she wanted to kill him without any explanation. She was really cruel. As Suyu looked around, he discovered that the 4 bodyguards were just at the half-fairy realm. As for the noblewoman, she was just at the 3 crystals half-fairy realm. As for the maid, she was even lower, as she was only at the 1 crystal half-fairy realm. It wouldn't be difficult for him to use his soul flame to burn all of them to death. Miss, before you kill him, shouldn't you think about the consequences first? Suyu didn't want to kill anyone, especially when there were so many of them. The noblewoman's pupils contracted, and her gaze became even colder. Are you threatening me? She assumed that Suyu planned to divulge the fact that he had seen her bathing. You can understand it that way. If you really want to try it, I don't mind doing it, Suyu said. Even though he was surrounded, he still wore a calm expression. It seemed like he was completely confident. When the noblewoman saw his calm demeanor, she couldn't help but feel slightly afraid. Could it be that he was confident that he could divulge what had just happened before the blade struck him? There was a struggle in her eyes. Just as she was hesitating, a thin and weak figure came in. Luckily, the noble lady was almost hit by him. Ah, sister, why did you come here? Ah, why did the manor's guards also come here? Why are you pointing your blades at me? Yuan Yingying asked in surprise. The noble woman's body shivered, and she stared at Yuan Yingying. After a moment, she forced herself to calm down and said, Yingying, come with me. Outside the tent, the noble woman asked Yuan Yingying bluntly, What did he say to you just now? Yuan Yingying tilted her head and wondered. What does my sister want to know? He told me everything. What do you want to know? Yuan Yingying blinked her eyes. She assumed that Suyu had already told her about his identity and origins. Thud. The noble woman subconsciously took 2 steps back. Her body shivered and she clenched her teeth. She was so infuriated that she trembled. Despicable and shameless perverted thief! You dared to use my sister to threaten me. It was obvious that she had misunderstood Suyu and had held back to inform her sister about this matter. Chapter 739. What did Big Sister say? What's wrong with you? Was it cold? I'll give the mink fur to Big Sister, Yuan Yingying hurriedly said. The noblewoman's face turned cold. No need. The noblewoman stared at Yuan Yingying with a conflicted look in her eyes. In the end, she said in a low voice, Don't tell anyone what he told you. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yuan Yingying didn't understand why her sister was angry. She just thought that she had unintentionally offended her sister, so she nodded like a chick pecking at grains. I won't tell anyone. I promise I won't. Don't worry. Humph. You're on your own. The noble woman coldly snorted and angrily returned to her tent. When he passed by Suyu's tent, he gave Suyu a deep look. The other party had obviously recognized the Yuan family's flag and had ulterior motives for sneaking into the convoy. Naturally, they wouldn't dare to announce what had happened tonight for the time being. As long as they didn't kill him rashly, there shouldn't be any problems. Once he returned to the Blue Mountain Ridge, he would find an opportunity to finish him off without anyone noticing. Miss, this is a barren mountain forest, and in front of us is the infamous demonic Ape Mountain Range. The nearest human town is hundreds of thousands of miles away. Don't you think it strange that an old man with no cultivation suddenly appeared here? The eyes of the maid, Xiao Tao, shone brightly. The noble woman had thought of this as well. The appearance of this perverted old man was indeed too strange. However, for the time being, she did not dare to act rashly. Even though she knew that this old man was a little strange, she could only endure it. Don't make any moves. Wait until we return to the Tsang mountain range, ordered the noble lady. In the tent, Suyu muttered to himself. The Yuan family was a family that specialized in refining elixirs, so they had a deeper understanding of medicinal theory. They should have a very detailed understanding of how to nourish one's physical body. He might even have the right medicinal pills. He might as well sneak into the Yuan clan's convoy and return to the Yuan clan. If not, he could enter the Blue Mountain Range. It was better than being in the middle of nowhere in the wilderness. As for the young mistress, who was filled with killing intent, Su Yu did not pay much attention to her. If Yuan Yingying hadn't barged in, the eldest miss would have been the one lying on the floor. After a day of silence, the carriage set off the next morning. Su Yu slept soundly in a small tent, which was just outside of Yuan Yingying's tent. Ever since the true dragon destroyed the world, he had never closed his eyes. His mind was exhausted, but after this nap, he felt refreshed. He grabbed a set of clothes that Yuan Yingying had found. It was the uniform worn by the guards. In order to facilitate movement, it was soft, flexible, and had a certain level of defense. Su Yu put it on easily and tied up his messy white hair with a wooden hairpin. He then tied his hair into a bun and let his white hair drape over his back. Looking into the mirror, Su Yu was slightly startled. The old man in the mirror was thin but extremely straight. His snow-white hair was neatly combed. His face was still as handsome as when he was young. Even though he had aged, he still had a certain charm to him. He looked completely different from an ordinary old man. He did not look like an old man with one foot in the grave. Instead, he looked like a sage-like expert. "Uncle, we're leaving," the second young miss, Yuan Yingying, shouted sweetly from outside the tent. Su Yu lifted the flap of the tent and crawled out. "Ah, who are you? Where's Uncle?" Yuan Yingying's small mouth opened in an exaggerated manner as she stared at the white-haired old man with a dumbfounded expression. She had an adorable and naive look on her face. Su Yu couldn't help but smile. "Second young miss, have you already forgotten me? I'm the old man you picked up last night. My name is Su." Su Yu suddenly realized that he still hadn't told Yuan Yingying about his name. Now that the Central Prefecture's king had set his eyes on him, he could no longer use his name. After mulling it over for a moment, Su Yu uttered a name. "I'm Su Yuxian. You can just call me Old Su." Su Yu revealed a faint smile. They were Su Yuxian, Su Yu, Xia Jingyu, and Qin Xianer. Su Yu had chosen a word for each of their names. This could be considered Su Yu's remembrance of them. "So, it's Uncle Su." Yuan Yingying heaved a sigh of relief when she heard his voice. She then started sizing Su Yu up, her eyes filled with curiosity. "Su Yuxian? Uncle Su, are you really Yuxian? Will it rain?" Su Yu couldn't help but chuckle. The second young miss was so innocent and pure that he couldn't help but think of Xianer. For a moment the two of them overlapped. He couldn't help but feel tender affection for her in his heart. "Yingying, why aren't you getting on the carriage?" The carriage passed by and the curtain was lifted. The young miss glanced down. When her gaze fell on Su Yu, she was startled. She could not associate the sage-like and charming old man in front of her with the old lecher with disheveled hair, who looked like a demon the night before. It was only when Su Yu looked at her that she recognized him. Humph! With hatred in her heart, the first young mistress pulled down the bead curtain with a cold harumph. Yuan Yingying stuck out her tongue, waved her hand, and got into the carriage. As for Su Yu, he was riding a horse with a young guard. When he sat on it, Su Yu noticed that this horse was completely different from the horses in the Zhenlong world. His body was filled with a power that he had never seen before. It was extremely powerful, and it was somewhat similar to a human's vital energy. "Humph! You haven't seen it before, have you? This is my Yuan family's 10,000 miles solitary horse. It's a famous first-grade demonic beast, and it can travel 100,000 miles in a day." The eldest young Mrs. Maid, Xiao Tao, was riding beside Su Yu. When she saw Su Yu curiously examining the horse he was sitting on, she sneered at him before leaving. A demonic beast? There was no such thing as a demonic beast in the Zhenlong world. Powerful beasts were called ferocious beasts, while cultivators were called spiritual beasts. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. "It seems like I must come up with a way to learn more about Jiuzhou's basic knowledge," Su Yu thought to himself. The 10,000 miles solitary horse galloped forward, as if it was chasing the wind. In just 3 breaths' time, it had covered 10 miles. Such a speed was comparable to a 3 crystals half fairies. However, Suyu noticed that his position was a little strange. His mount was surrounded by the rest of the guards on all sides. Suyu obviously didn't think that they were protecting him. On the contrary, they were trying to surround him so that they could guard against him. Suyu didn't care about their actions, so he just rode peacefully. In just 2 hours, they had already traveled 10,000 miles and reached a pitch-black mountain range. The mountain range was so tall that it reached the clouds. It was extremely steep, and it was densely packed. If one looked at it from afar, they would feel uneasy and uneasy. The carriages stopped in front of the Black Mountain Range. Suyu's sharp senses detected that the atmosphere had changed. The guards were all tensed up, and it could be seen from their contracted pupils and heavy breathing. "We have arrived at the demonic ape mountain range. Take out the heavenly fragrance pill." The leader, Qing, waved his hand and took out a crossbow from his back. It was completely black, and it was obviously a high-grade divine artifact. The guard leading Suyu urged his horse forward and solemnly took out a bottle of elixirs from his pocket. There was only one of them, and it was completely pink and emitted an intoxicating fragrance. It smelled like a woman's body odor. It was fragrant but not strong. Qing took the elixir and placed it in the crossbow. He then aimed at the Black Mountain Range and shot it to the right. The powerful force of the shot caused the elixir to be shot deep into the Black Mountain Range and fall into a depression. The carriages immediately became silent. Everyone pricked up their ears and stared at the Black Mountain Range without blinking. They even tried to suppress their breathing sound. In the dead silence, everyone's nerves were extremely tensed. Squeak! Squeak! In the deathly silence, a strange cry suddenly reverberated through the mountains. It was sharp and ear-piercing, and it suddenly resounded in the silent mountains, causing one to tremble with fear. At the same time, a giant black shadow flashed through the Black Mountain Range and pounced toward the heavenly fragrance pill. When the leader, Qing, saw this, his face lit up and he shouted in a low voice, "Let's go! Hurry up and follow us!" He then retreated to the carriages and horses, closely guarding the strongest people in the group. The carriages and horses tried their best to suppress their movements, and everyone held their breaths as they quickly passed through the Black Mountain Range. Suyu was puzzled. The strange sound just now seemed like the cry of a monkey or an ape. "May I ask what happened?" Suyu lowered his voice to ensure that his voice would not travel more than 3 meters away. The guard carrying him replied, "It's the demonic ape from the demonic ape mountain range. This place used to be an ancient road, and it was bustling with activity. However, a demonic ape suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Not only was it agile, but it was also a level 2 demonic beast, which was equivalent to a level 2 fairy. It occupied the surrounding mountains and robbed people. From then on, this place was renamed the Demonic Ape Mountain Range." Suyu smacked his lips. A monkey was robbing people? Not only did this demonic ape rob people's belongings, but it also killed all of the traveling merchants. Moreover, the most terrifying thing about this demonic ape is that it even likes to kidnap human women and bring them back to its cave to have sex with them. Many human women have been brutally raped by it, and its evil reputation is really abhorrent. Suyu slightly furrowed his brows, as this was the first time he had heard of a non-human creature raping human women. If that's the case, why don't we kill it? The Blue Mountain Range can't even find a level 3 fairy, can it? Suyu asked. The guard on the horse replied angrily, "Why not? The Blue Mountain Range's 3 great families have joined hands to suppress the demonic ape more than once. However, the demonic ape is cunning, and it uses the demonic ape mountain range's complex terrain to hide. The demonic ape mountain range covers a radius of 100,000 miles, and it is like a maze. Once you hide within it, it will be like looking for a needle in a haystack." He then added, Our fairy realm cultivators were either unable to find them, or some of them were killed by the demonic apes' sneak attacks. In fact, there was even a young female fairy realm cultivator who was abducted, and her whereabouts are still unknown. It seems like she was also abducted into the demonic ape's cave and became its sex object. As he spoke, the guard on the horse couldn't help but pound his thigh in anger. It's laughable that the Blue Mountain Range's human race is being bullied by a demonic ape. Many of our women have been raped, yet we are powerless to save them. Suyu slightly furrowed his brows when he heard this. The group of horses was galloping forward, and everyone was trying their best to urge their horses to leave the demonic ape mountain range as quickly as possible. The demonic ape was too dangerous, and if it discovered that the heavenly fragrance pill wasn't a woman, it would become enraged and discover them. After all, their whole group might not even be a match for the demonic ape. The group of horses moved forward in an orderly manner, and they quickly entered the demonic ape mountain range's core region. As long as they could pass through this region, they would be able to leave the mountain safely and enter the Blue Mountain Range's boundary. Chirp! However, an ape's cry, which made one's hair stand on end, reverberated through the mountains. Chapter 740. Not good. We've been tricked. The devil ape wasn't lured away. Instead, it followed us all the way to the center of the Devil Ape Mountain Range. Leader Ah Ching's expression changed drastically. If he was at the periphery of the demonic ape mountain range, he could still turn back and seize the opportunity to escape. However, the terrain of the demonic ape mountain range was complex. How could they escape in a short time? He had long heard that this devil ape was cunning, and it turned out to be true. But what surprised Ah Ching was how did the demonic ape see through them and follow them? The terrain of the demonic ape mountain range was complex. Although it was advantageous to the demonic apes, it was also advantageous to them. How did the devil ape discover them? Gigi. Suddenly, a 1 zhang tall black shadow leaped out from a mountain peak. It spread its 4 limbs like a giant bird and pounced on the carriage with extreme precision. Bang! Under the heavy pressure, the wheels of the carriage sank into the ground and could no longer move. When Suyu raised his head and looked over, he saw a giant ape covered in black fur. It was the size of 2 human beings, and its limbs were extremely long and muscular. It had a huge head covered in long, fluffy black hair, and a pair of eyes that contained anthropomorphic cruelty and ferocity. It swaggered to the top of the carriage and glanced at the guards around it with contempt. The guards sucked in a breath of cold air, and many of them felt their limbs go soft. As they faced the terrifying demonic ape, their minds were filled with the image of its ferocious name, which had slaughtered dozens of fairies. If it weren't for the fact that their leader was still around, they would have scattered in all directions. Don't panic. Let's go together and save the first miss and second miss. Ah Ching was the closest to the carriage. She took the lead and tapped the ground with the tip of her toes on the horse's back. She flew to the window at a low altitude. He exerted force with both his fists and suddenly struck the side of the carriage, creating a human-sized hole. "Miss, come out!" Ah Ching shouted. But at this moment, a black shadow whipped over at an extremely fast speed. Ah Ching's expression changed, and he subconsciously took out his high-grade divine artifact long saber to block. Zheng, the long saber broke, and 5 deep grooves appeared on Ah Ching's chest. He flew backward and smashed into the stone wall. In a breath's time, he was injured by the devil ape's palm strike. If the leader was seriously injured, what would happen to the rest of the guards? The guards who surrounded him were instantly sent flying in all directions like pebbles. Miserable shrieks filled the air. When he took a closer look, he discovered that the 8 3 crystals half-fairy realm guards were severely injured. As for the remaining 2 crystals half-fairy realm experts, they would all be killed in an instant. Oh! The demonic ape stood on the roof of the carriage like a human and patted its chest with both hands. Its fierce eyes flickered with a mocking light. He was mocking the weakness of the human race. Then, the demonic ape lowered its head, and with a flick of its long arm, the roof of the carriage was lifted, revealing 2 shivering women inside. "Big sister, I'm scared." Yuan Yingying was so scared that she started crying. She had also heard about the devil ape's evil reputation. However, the eldest miss was even more afraid. She was cold and arrogant, but now her face was deathly pale, and her eyes were filled with terror. Her delicate body was shivering, and she didn't dare to move. Gigi. The devil ape thumped its chest excitedly, and its eyes emitted lustful light. It stretched its arms and hugged a woman in each of its arms. Qing was furious. "Let go of the young lady. I'll fight it out with you." He tried to use his angry roar to scare the demonic ape. However, this demon ape was extremely intelligent. It stared at Qing in disdain, raised its head to the sky, and laughed maniacally. Then, it tapped the ground with its feet, and its black body leaped into the air like a giant bird, flying toward the mountains. Once it escaped into the mountains, it would be impossible to find the eldest miss and the second miss. They would become the devil ape's women, and they would be tortured by it. Yuan Yingying was so scared that she started to cry. She hit the devil ape's arms with all her might. "Let go of me! Someone save me and my big sister!" The eldest miss was so scared that her face turned deathly pale. She almost fainted, and she couldn't even speak. Qing, who was watching the devil ape escape, couldn't even chase after it. His eyes were bloodshot. However, at this moment, a majestic and indifferent voice reverberated in the mountains. "Evil creature, considering that it wasn't easy for you to cultivate, I gave you a chance to repent even though you have a bad reputation. However, I didn't expect that you wouldn't repent, and you would bring disaster to the human world. Since I'm passing by today, I'll kill you and rid the world of evil." The unfathomable voice that suddenly appeared caused everyone to be startled. Then, a scene that shocked them even more appeared. The devil ape, who had leaped into the air, and was about to leap into the mountains, suddenly let out a miserable shriek. It let go of its hands and hugged its head, howling crazily as if it was suffering from extreme pain. Its ferocious eyes were filled with fright and terror. It bore the pain and stomped on the mountain, and it turned into a black shadow that fled into the mountains. The 2 misses of the Yuan family, who had just escaped death, circulated their vital energy and flew back to the group of horses. The eldest miss, who had just recovered from the shock, was panting heavily with Qing's support. As for Yuan Yingying, she wiped away her tears and knelt down to the ground gratefully. "Thank you, senior. Thank you for saving my life. Yingying will never forget it." The eldest miss also reacted at this moment. She put her palms together and knelt down to express her gratitude. "Thank you, senior. Thank you for saving my life. I'll never forget it." Yuan Yingying expressed her gratitude sincerely, while the eldest miss was a little scheming. She didn't know whether the devil ape was dead or alive, and she wondered if it would come out again to take revenge. If she could ask the senior to come with her, this trip would be foolproof. This was especially the case when the devil ape was attacked. Even though she was close to it, she felt a terrifying destructive power, which caused even her soul to feel a burning pain. Such a miraculous technique shocked and awed the eldest miss. That person was surely a peerless expert. At the very least, she didn't know anyone who could injure the devil ape mountain without anyone noticing. "It's just a small matter, so you don't need to thank me. Quickly chase after that evil creature. After it's injured, it will probably escape back to its cave, so you can take advantage of that opportunity to save the other women," the faint voice said. The eldest Mrs. Gaze shifted as she asked, "Senior, won't you come with us?" The faint voice replied, "There's no need. That evil creature won't live for more than an hour, so it won't be able to harm anyone. You can go ahead." The eldest miss was delighted when she heard this. She put her palms together and kowtowed to the voice. "Thank you, senior. Go ahead." The faint voice faded away. Suyu, who was on the horse's back, slowly opened his eyes. His complexion, which had just recovered, was now slightly pale. His body was too weak, and it would be a burden for his soul to leave and return to his body. When the faint voice disappeared completely, the eldest miss stood up. Delight appeared in her eyes as she said, "Yuan family's guards, this is your chance to make a contribution. Follow me and kill the demonic ape." As a matter of fact, the guards didn't need the eldest miss's reminder, as they already knew the significance of this trip. After killing the demonic ape, they wouldn't even need to consider the rewards, honor, and qualifications that they would get when they returned to the Blue Mountain Range. Moreover, the demonic ape had plundered the area for dozens of years, which meant that it had plundered many treasures. Even if they could just get a small portion of it, it would be more than what they would get if they worked hard as guards for 5 years. The group of horses and carriages were full of fighting spirit as they chased after the demonic ape. After 2 hours in an inconspicuous black mountain range, they found a hidden underground cave. They could faintly sense the demonic ape's fiendish aura in the cave, as well as the voices of human women. The group was overjoyed, so they immediately entered the cave. The underground cave was quite spacious, and its floor was covered with wild beasts' furs. It was quite comfortable. All kinds of dried meat hung on the wall, which emitted a fragrant aroma. There were also many fruits in the mountain forest, which were plentiful. 3 young women were hugging each other in a corner of the cave. They were shivering as they looked at Suyu and the others, who had just barged into the cave. "Put some clothes on them and comfort them," the eldest miss ordered, while she looked at the lifeless demonic ape in the center of the cave. Her pretty eyes flickered as she said, "It's really as Senior said. This demonic ape won't live for long. Ah Ching, tie the demonic ape and bring it back to the Blue Mountain Range," the eldest miss said. Ah Ching licked his lips as he thought. This is the legendary demonic ape. It's the demonic ape that gave many of the Blue Mountain Range's factions a headache. After all, if they killed it, the Yuan family would surely become famous in the Blue Mountain Range. Moreover, the demonic ape's entire body was a treasure, especially its demonic core, which was an important ingredient for many elixirs. 4 sturdy guards immediately pounced over and tied the demonic ape's corpse. While the group was busy, the eldest miss furrowed her brows. There weren't any other treasures in the cave besides spiritual fruits. According to the records, the demonic ape had plundered many treasures. Moreover, the number of women who had been kidnapped was far more than just 3. After all, there were probably some women who couldn't bear such humiliation and ended up committing suicide. But a monkey wouldn't have spent all of these treasures, would it? Where did all of these treasures go? Suyu had the same question in his mind as he carefully examined his surroundings. The cave didn't seem natural, and there were several hidden areas that seemed to have been carved by someone. All of a sudden, Suyu noticed a fine black needle beside his feet. If Suyu didn't have sharp eyesight, he wouldn't have noticed its existence. When he sniffed it, a pungent smell assaulted his nostrils, and his mind became heavy. However, it was fortunate that he had the divine 9-dragon cauldron, so he quickly sobered up. "What a powerful smell! It can even affect one's mind," Suyu muttered as he calmly put the black needle into his sleeves. "Ying, let me ask you something." Suyu walked over to her and asked, "Is there anyone in the Blue Mountain Range or its vicinity who is proficient in the study of poisons? A poison that could control one's soul and was even targeted at fairies wasn't an ordinary poison technique." Yuan Ying blinked her eyes and asked, "Study of poisons? Uncle Su, are you talking about our Yuan family? We are an alchemist family, so we must understand pharmacology. Study of poisons is also a part of pharmacology." "An alchemist family?" Suyu squinted his eyes and asked, "Apart from the Yuan family? There are many alchemist factions in the Blue Mountain Range, but only the Elixir Production Alliance can rival our Yuan family. Their elixirs are more amazing than ours," Yuan Ying said. When she had just finished speaking, she heard a soft rebuke. You are boosting others' morale and belittling our own. Since when was my Yuan family's elixir production any weaker than the Elixir Production Alliance's? She was quite displeased that she hadn't found any of the treasures. Yuan Yingying shrank her neck back, but she still wasn't willing to accept this. She then muttered in a low voice, "It was the Elixir Production Alliance that was stronger." The Elixir Production Alliance? Su Yu muttered softly. After 4 hours, they had finished packing everything, and they all carried the demonic ape's corpse as they left the demonic ape mountain range. After 3 days, a giant city stretched across the horizon like a giant beast. Its scale wasn't any smaller than any of the cities that Su Yu had seen while he was chasing after the Blood Emperor. In fact, it wasn't any smaller than the whole Zhenlong world. Chapter 741. Only ranked 100? Su Yu was slightly surprised. Su Yu didn't expect that he would be teleported from the central prefecture to the 18 blessed and heavenly lands through the spatial vortex. Back in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, Su Yu had interacted with many people from the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. For example, the Red Blood Palace's Shangguan Qing'er, the Purple Cloud Palace's Lu Qi, and the puppet-making expert Yu Tianxi. Of course, there was also Su Yu's unforgettable enemy, Gu Taishu. Both times he had fought with his clone, but he had never met his main body. Xiao Chen did not know if he would run into him in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. Su Yu shook his head and got rid of his thoughts, then followed the Yuan family to the city. Get off the horse. Ah Qing, inform the Yuan family to come and pick them up. The young mistress got off the carriage. Ah Qing went to the front of the city alone. There was a majestic palace there, and outside the palace there were people from the Yuan family standing guard. Young mistress and second mistress are back. Send a message to the family immediately and tell them to use the extreme shadow crane to welcome them, Ah Qing said to the Yuan family guards outside. The guard immediately entered the hall and activated the communication array. The city was too big, and it was as big as the Zhenlong world. Even if he gave up on the solitary horse and traveled by foot, it would still take him half a day to reach the center of the city. Therefore, he asked the Yuan family to send a flying demonic beast, the extreme shadow crane. The speed of this crane was extremely fast. In less than 2 hours, it would be able to reach the Yuan family. Uncle Su, you don't have a home to return to. So, why don't you come with us to the Yuan family? Yuan Yingying pulled Su Yu's hand and looked at him with a pleading gaze. As they chatted along the way, he and Su Yu hit it off quite well, and their relationship improved day by day. He was very reluctant to see Su Yu leave. However, before Su Yu could speak, the eldest miss said, "Yingying, you're messing around again. Mr. Su has other important matters to attend to, so how can he allow you to act like a spoiled child? Only then would it be convenient for him to kill Su Yu without anyone noticing." Su Yu looked at the eldest miss with a profound gaze, then said calmly, "It's all right, I can deal with my matter later." "You!" The eldest young miss' eyes turned cold as she felt like she was going crazy. How dare this thief barge into the Yuan family? However, she couldn't do anything to him, for she was afraid that he would reveal what had happened that day. "Oh, that's great. Big sister, did you hear that? Uncle Su agreed to marry Yingying." Yuan Yingying was elated. The eldest miss snorted softly and waited quietly. 2 hours later, the clear cry of a crane came from the horizon. 10 gigantic white cranes flew over at high speed. His speed was so fast that it was comparable to a level 5 ferry's, and it had already reached the level of a middle-stage ferry. Each crane was controlled by a member of the Yuan family. Su Yu was curious. "What do those people do?" Yuan Yingying asked with a strange expression. "Uncle Su hasn't seen it before? They are beast tamers who can control demonic beasts with their mind energy. People who have this kind of ability are very rare. Our Yuan family spent a lot of money to hire 5 one-star beast tamers. There are less than 10 beast tamers in the entire Tsongshan city." Beast tamer? Yet another novelty. However, there was an extra person on one of the cranes. It was a young man dressed in embroidered robes with an extraordinary bearing. His appearance was ordinary, and his figure was average. However, he had a confident smile on his face, and his temperament was outstanding, as if he had been in a position of power for a long time. "Ha ha, Sister Bai, you're finally back." The young man in embroidered robes dismounted from the white crane and strode over. His eyes were fixed on the first miss, and there was no one else around. The first miss furrowed her brows and asked, "Zhao Yin? Why did you follow me here to pick up someone from the Yuan family?" Zhao Yin seemed as if he didn't notice the first miss' displeasure, as he smiled and said, "Don't be like this, Sister Bai. After all, we have almost become a family." The first miss's expression became ice-cold. "Watch your words. I, Yuan Wanbi, don't have any relationship with you. Don't say things that will cause misunderstandings. Moreover, please call me by my full name, especially in front of your fiancé." The first miss was quite merciless. Zhao Yin was startled by her words, and he couldn't help but feel a little angry. However, he didn't dare to show it in front of everyone. After suppressing his anger with great difficulty, Zhao Yin acted as if he had just noticed Yuan Yingying. "Oh, Yingying, you also came back. It's good that you're fine." Yuan Yingying clasped her hands together and bit her lips as she lowered her head and hid behind Su Yu. She wasn't shy at all. Su Yu saw a flash of sadness on her face, but it quickly disappeared. As far as he could remember, Yuan Yingying was always optimistic and naive. Su Yu couldn't help but shake his head as he examined Zhao Yin's expression. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Zhao Yin wasn't interested in his fiancée at all. Instead, he was fawning over his future sister-in-law, Yuan Wanbi. Zhao Yin had been snubbed by Yuan Wanbi, and Yuan Yingying was still avoiding him. This made him lose face. "I won't see you off. See you later." Zhao Yin waved his hand at her. He had come to see them off into the city. Yuan Wanbi glanced at him calmly, then stepped onto the white crane and flew away. Her maid, Xiao Tao, followed closely behind her. After everyone had left, Zhao Yin looked at Yuan Wanbi's back with an ice-cold gaze. "Humph, slut. In the past you always fawned on me, but now you're speaking to me so coldly? You really changed your attitude quickly." He was quite confused as to why Yuan Wanbi had changed so much. Before she had left, Yuan Wanbi had secretly met with her sister's fiancé behind her sister's back. The two of them had been secretly chatting for a long time. Apart from pledging to be her husband, they did everything they could, such as holding hands, hugging, and kissing. It could be said that their feelings for each other were quite deep. Yuan Wanbi had taken a fancy to Zhao Yin's status, so she had taken the initiative to please him. However, when she came back this time, she seemed like a completely different person, treating him like a stranger. This made Zhao Yin confused and angry. His gaze flickered, and he walked over to where Xiao Tao's feet had been. A tiny syringe seemed to have fallen to the ground unintentionally. Zhao Yin picked it up and skillfully opened it. He snorted and said, "I want to see what happened to your body." He crushed the needle with his index and middle fingers, then rolled up a piece of paper. If Yuan Wanbi had been here, she would have surely recognized that it had been written by her maid, Xiao Tao. Did she secretly go to the White Cloud Lake? A grave look appeared in Zhao Yin's eyes. Why would she go there? That is the territory of the Shangguan family. Zhao Yin's expression became grave when he mentioned the Shangguan family. The Shangguan family's influence was enormous, and it covered a circumference of hundreds of millions of miles. It ruled over 9 mountain ranges, 7 mountains, 6 caves, and 5 villas. The Blue Mountain Range was just one of the 9 mountain ranges. But, did this have anything to do with Yuan Wanbi's change in temperament? As he continued to read, his expression suddenly changed and became gloomy. It was a secret record of Su Yu's assault on Yuan Wanbi. "How dare you touch my woman, old thing!" Zhao Yin's eyes shone with a cold light. But soon after, A bright light flashed in her eyes. Since that's the case, why didn't Bayer kill him and instead brought him back to the Yuan clan? This caused Zhao Yin to notice an inkling. Zhao Yin was well aware of Yuan Wanbi's temperament, and she knew that she wasn't a soft-hearted woman. Since Su Yu dared to violate her, then it was impossible for him to still be alive. Now, not only was Su Yu safe and sound, but he had even been brought back to the Yuan family. Zhao Yin seemed to have sensed something, and his eyes gradually narrowed. Could it be that the old bastard has something on by her, causing her to have no choice but to obey his orders and even pretend to sever all ties with me? It had to be said that he was indeed smart and had deduced half of the truth. Good, you old thing. You're just a bag of old bones, yet you still dare to covet my woman. Zhao Yin only felt that his head was green, and his heart was filled with hatred. In the sky, on the white crane, Yuan Wanbi asked calmly, "Did you follow my instructions and leave a note behind?" Xiao Tao, who was beside her, nodded and said, "I followed your instructions and shifted the blame to Zhao Yin, making him think that it was that old bastard who was causing trouble for you. That's why you decided to sever all ties with him. How could he know that you were already engaged to the Shangguan family's young master? How could a small family like the Zhao family compete with a colossal family like the Shangguan family?" Yuan Wanbi was a very scheming woman. Her maid, Xiao Tao, was also very scheming. Zhao Yin only gave me a small favor, yet he wants me to become a spy for him and monitor your every move? How foolish! Let's see how Zhao Yin will deal with that old bastard. Xiao Tao sneered. It turned out that Xiao Tao had only pretended to be a spy, while she was still Yuan Wanbi's subordinate. But, young miss, wouldn't it be too risky to let a fifth person know that you were disrespected? If Zhao Yin spread this matter and the Shangguan family learned about it, it would be troublesome. After all, the Shangguan family attaches great importance to virtue, so you mustn't be careless. Yuan Wanbi curled up the corners of her mouth. Based on my understanding of him, he loves his face as much as his life. So, how could he let an outsider know that his secret lover was violated? Don't worry, we will just watch a good show. Xiao Tao revealed a faint smile. 2 hours later, in the Yuan family's residence. The Yuan family's residence was extremely large, and it occupied 1/100th of the Blue Mountain Range's territory. It was comparable to the Zhenlong world's Xinyue Island. There were many people in the residence, and it was bustling with activity. The houses were neatly arranged, and they were as grand and magnificent as the courtyard of an imperial palace. Every corner of the residence had a formation that gathered the world's spiritual energy. This was why the spiritual energy within the residence was denser than the outside world. As Su Yu lowered his head and looked at it, he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. As expected of Jiuzhou, even a single residence was so exaggerated. Come with me to pay your respects to the family master. All of you contributed greatly in killing the demonic ape. Yuan Wanbi landed on the ground and led a group of guards to pay their respects to the family master. The guards who followed her were all excited. Su Yu praised her inwardly. Although Yuan Wanbi was a scheming woman, she had a good grasp of how to conduct herself. At least, this group of guards was deeply grateful to her. As for Yuan Yingying, Su Yu couldn't help but sigh inwardly. It was obvious that Yuan Yingying was also in the same group, so she should have also contributed greatly. However, the only person the guards were grateful to was Yuan Wanbi. With her temperament, she probably wouldn't have a good time in the family. The Yuan family's master had already gathered the core members of the Yuan family and was waiting in the meeting hall. He was in his early 40s and had a refined look in his eyes. Father, uncles. Yuan Wanbi was dignified and generous. Her actions were natural and proper, and her words were appropriate. Most of the older generation in the room admired her, and even though a few of them were jealous of the family master, they couldn't find fault with Yuan Wanbi. This woman was really perfect and flawless. Her conduct, martial path talent, appearance, intelligence were all top-notch, and no one could find fault with her. "Haha, my two precious daughters have come back." The Yuan family's master stood up and welcomed them. He didn't care about the solemn occasion, and he held one of them in each hand. "Father, I missed you so much." Yuan Yingying kissed the Yuan family's master's cheek affectionately. She was just acting according to her nature, and she didn't have any ulterior motives.